rather all things which come into existence in that which is the one and all, which we call the cosmos, exist in it at the same time. 26. If any man should propose to thee the question, how the name Antoninus is written, wouldst thou with a straining of the voice utter each letter? What then if they grow angry? Wilt thou be angry too? Wilt thou not go on with composure and number every letter? Just so then, in this life also, remember that every duty is made up of certain parts. These it is thy duty to observe, and without being disturbed or showing anger towards those who are angry with thee, to go on thy way and finish that which is set before thee. 27. How cruel it is not to allow men to strive after the things which appear to them to be suitable to their nature and profitable. And yet in a manner thou dost not allow them to do this, when thou art vexed because they do wrong. For they are certainly moved towards things because they suppose them to be suitable to their nature and profitable to them. But it is not so. Teach them then, and show them without. 28. Death is a cessation of the impressions through the senses, and of the pulling of the strings which move the appetites, and of the discursive movements of the thoughts, and of the service to the flesh. 29. It is a shame for the soul to be first to give way in this life, when thy body does not give way. 30. Take care that thou art not made into a Caesar, that thou art not dyed with this dye. For such things happen. Keep thyself then simple, good, pure, serious, free from affection, a friend of justice, a worshipper of the gods, kind, affectionate, strenuous in all proper acts. Strive to continue to be such as philosophy wished to make thee. Reverence the gods and help men. Short is life. There is only one fruit of this terrene life, a pious disposition and social acts. Do everything as a disciple of Antoninus. Remember his constancy in every act which was conformable to reason, and his evenness in all things, and his piety, and the serenity of his countenance, and his sweetness, and his disregard of empty fame, and his efforts to understand things, and how he would never let anything pass without having first most carefully examined it, and clearly understood it, and how he bore with those who blamed him unjustly, without blaming them in return, how he did nothing in a hurry, and how he listened not to calumnies, and how exact an examiner of manners and actions he was, and not given to reproach people, nor timid, nor suspicious, nor a sophist, and with how little he was satisfied, such as lodging, bed, dress, food, servants, and how laborious and patient, and how he was able, on account of his sparing diet, to hold out to the evening, not even requiring to relieve himself by any evacuations, except at the usual hour, and his firmness and uniformity in his friendships, and how he tolerated freedom of speech in those who opposed his opinions, and the pleasure that he had when any man showed him anything better, and how religious he was without superstition. Imitate all this, that thou mayest have as good a conscience when thy last hour comes as he had. 31. Return to thy sober senses, and call thyself back. And when thou hast roused thyself from sleep, and hast perceived that they were only dreams which troubled thee, now in thy waking hours look at these things about thee, as thou didst look at those dreams. 32. I consist of a little body and a soul. Now to this little body all things are indifferent, for it is not able to perceive differences. But to the understanding, those things only are indifferent, which are not the works of its own activity. But whatever things are the works of its own activity, all these are in its power. And of these, however, only those which are done with reference to the present. For as to the future and the past activities of the mind, even these are for the present indifferent. 33. Neither the labour which the hand does, nor that of the foot, is contrary to nature, so long as the foot does the foot's work, and the hand the hand's. So then, neither to a man as a man is his labour contrary to nature, so long as it does the things of a man. But if the labour is not contrary to his nature, neither is it an evil to him. 34. How many pleasures have been enjoyed by robbers, patricides, tyrants. 35. Dost thou not see how the handicraftsmen accommodate themselves up to a certain point to those who are not skilled in their craft? Nevertheless, they cling to the reason, the principles of their art, and do not endure to depart from it. Is it not strange if the architect and the physician shall have more respect to the reason of their own arts than man to his own reason, which is common to him and the gods? 36. Asia and Europe are corners of the universe. All the sea, a drop in the universe. Athos, a little clod of the universe. All the present time is a point in eternity. All things are little, changeable, perishable. All things come from thence, from that universal ruling power, either directly proceeding or by way of sequence. And accordingly, the lion's gaping jaws, and that which is poisonous, and every harmful thing, as a thorn, as mud, are after products of the grand and beautiful. Do not then imagine that they are of another kind from that which thou dost venerate, but form a just opinion of the source of all. 37. He who has seen present things has seen all, both everything which has taken place from all eternity, and everything which will be for time without end. For all things are of one kin, and of one form. 38. Frequently consider the connection of all things in the universe, and their relation to one another. For in a manner all things are implicated with one another, and all in this way are friendly to one another. For one thing comes in order after another, and this is by virtue of the active movement and mutual conspiration and the unity of the substance. 39. Adapt thyself to the things with which thy lot has been cast, and the men among whom thou hast received thy portion, love them, but do it truly and sincerely. 40. Every instrument, tool, vessel, if it does that for which it has been made, is well, and yet he who made it is not there. But in the things which are held together by nature, there is within, and there abides in them, the power which made them. Wherefore, the more is it fit to reverence this power, and to think that, if thou dost live and act according to its will, everything in thee is in conformity to intelligence. And thus also in the universe, the things which belong to it are in conformity to intelligence. 41. Whatever of the things which are not within thy power thou shalt suppose to be good for thee, or evil, it must of necessity be that, if such a bad thing befall thee, or the loss of such a good thing, thou wilt not blame the gods, and hate men too, those who are the cause of the misfortune or the loss, or those who are suspected of being likely to be the cause. And indeed, we do much injustice, because we make a difference between these things, and because we do not regard these things as indifferent. But if we judge only those things which are in our power to be good or bad, there remains no reason either for finding fault with God or standing in a hostile attitude to man. 42. We are all working together to one end, some with knowledge and design, and others without knowing what they do. As men also when they are asleep, of whom it is Heraclitus, I think, who says that they are laborers and cooperators in the things which take place in the universe. But men cooperate after different fashion, and even those who cooperate abundantly, who find fault with what happens, and those who try to oppose it and to hinder it, for the universe had need even of such men as these. It remains then for thee to understand among what kind of workmen thou placest thyself, for he who rules all things will certainly make a right use of thee, and he will receive thee among some part of the cooperators, and of those whose labours conduce to one end. But be not thou such a part as the mean and ridiculous verse in the play, which Chrysippus speaks of. 43. Does the sun undertake to do the work of the rain, or Aesculapius the work of the earth? And how is it with respect to each of the stars? Are they not different, and yet they work together to the same end? 44. If the gods have determined about me, and about the things which must happen to me, they have determined well, for it is not easy to imagine a deity without forethought. And as to doing me harm, why should they have any desire towards that? For what advantage would result to them from this, or to the whole, which is the special object of their providence? But if they have not determined about me individually, they have certainly determined about the whole at least, and the things which happen by way of sequence in this general arrangement, I ought to accept with pleasure, and to be content with them. But if they determine about nothing, which is wicked to believe, for if we do believe it, let us neither sacrifice, nor pray, nor swear by them, nor do anything else which we do as if the gods were present and lived with us. But if, however, the gods determine about none of the things which concern us, I am able to determine about myself, and I can inquire about that which is useful. And that is useful to every man, which is conformable to his own constitution and nature. But my nature is rational and social, and my city and country, so far as I am Antoninus, is Rome. But so far as I am a man, it is the world. The things, then, which are useful to these cities, are alone useful to me. 45. Whatever happens to every man, this is for the interest of the universal. This might be sufficient, but further thou wilt observe this also as a general truth, if thou dost observe that whatever is profitable to any man is profitable also to other men. But let the word profitable here be taken in the common sense, as said of things of the middle kind, neither good nor bad. 46. As it happens to thee in the amphitheatre and such places, that the continual sight of the same things and the uniformity make the spectacle wearisome, so it is in the whole of life. For all things above, below, are the same, and from the same. How long then? 47. Think continually that all kinds of men, of all kinds of pursuits, and of all nations are dead, so that thy thoughts come down even to Philistian, and Phoebus, and Oreganian. Now turn thy thoughts to the other kinds. To that place, then, we must remove, where there are so many great orators and so many noble philosophers, Heraclitus, Pythagoras, Socrates, so many heroes of former days, and so many generals after them, and tyrants. Besides these, the Exodus, Hipparchus, Archimedes, and other men of acute natural talents, great minds, lovers of labour, versatile, confident, mockers even of the perishable and ephemeral life of man, as Menippus and such as are like him. As to all these, consider that they have long been in the dust. What harm then is this to them, and what to those whose names are altogether unknown? One thing here is worth a great deal, to pass thy life in truth and justice, with a benevolent disposition, even to liars and unjust men. 48. When thou wishest to delight thyself, think of the virtues of those who live with thee. For instance, the activity of one, and the modesty of another, and the liberality of a third, and some other good quality of a fourth. For nothing delights so much as the examples of the virtues, when they are exhibited in the morals of those who live with us, and present themselves in abundance, as far as is possible. Wherefore we must keep them before us. 49. Thou art not dissatisfied, I suppose, because thou weighest only so many literae, and not 300. Be not dissatisfied, then, that thou must live only so many years, and not more. For as thou art satisfied with the amount of substance which has been assigned to thee, so be content with the time. 50. Let us try to persuade men, but act even against their will when the principles of justice lead that way. If, however, any man by using force stands in thy way, betake thyself to contentment and tranquillity, and at the same time employ the hindrance towards the exercise of some other virtue. And remember that thy attempt was with a reservation, that thou didst not desire to do impossibilities. What then didst thou desire? Some effort as this. But thou attainest thy object, if the things to which thou wast moved are or are not accomplished. 51. He who loves fame considers another man's activity to be his own good, and he who loves pleasure his own sensations. But he who has an understanding considers his own acts to be his own good. 52. It is in our power to have no opinion about a thing, and not to be disturbed in our soul. For things themselves have no natural power to form our judgments. 53. Accustom thyself to attend carefully to what is said by another, and as much as it is possible, be in the speaker's mind. 54. That which is not good for the swarm, neither is it good for the bee. 55. If sailors abuse the helmsman, or the sick the doctor, would they listen to anybody else? Or how could the helmsman secure the safety of those in the ship, or the doctor the health of those whom he attends? 56. How many together with whom I came into the world are already gone out of it? 57. To the jaundiced, honey tastes bitter, and to those bitten by mad dogs, water causes fear, and to little children the bowl is a fine thing. Why then am I angry? Dost thou think that a false opinion has less power than the bile in the jaundiced, or the poison in him who is bitten by a mad dog? 58. No man will hinder thee from living according to the reason of thy own nature. Nothing will happen to thee contrary to the reason of the universal nature. 59. What kind of people are those whom men wish to please, and for what objects, and by what kind of acts? How soon will time cover all things, and how many it has covered already? Book 7. 1. What is badness? It is that which thou hast often seen, and on the occasion of everything which happens, keep this in mind, that it is that which thou hast often seen. Everywhere up and down thou wilt find the same things, with which the old histories are filled, those of the Middle Ages and those of our own day, with which cities and houses are filled now. There is nothing new. All things are both familiar and short-lived. 2. How can our principles become dead unless the impressions, thoughts, which correspond to them are extinguished? But it is in thy power to continuously fan these thoughts into a flame. I can have that opinion about anything which I ought to have. If I can, why am I disturbed? These things which are external to my mind have no relation at all to my mind. Let this be the state of thy affects, and thou standest erect. To recover thy life is in thy power. Look at things again as thou didst use to look at them, for in this consists the recovery of thy life. 3. The idle business of show, plays on the stage, flocks of sheep, herds, exercises with spears, a bone cast to little dogs, a bit of bread into fish ponds, labourings of ants and burden carrying, runnings about of frightened little mice, puppets pulled by strings, all alike. It is thy duty then, in the midst of such things, to show good humour and not a proud air. To understand, however, that every man is worth just so much as the things are worth about which he busies himself. 4.
You guys don't have a clue. Let's hear Saudi Arabia to New York City, bro. You're talking zero crime rate. You're talking zero taxes. You're talking amazing communities, fantastic infrastructure, incredible communities, fantastic schools. The company you work for, paying for your child's education up to college level. You're talking about free healthcare. Extraordinarily low.
Really?
More safer in any Saudi city than you are in any major city.
Then go back and believe forever.
You lived in Saudi Arabia for 19 years and you say you'd rather live in Saudi Arabia than New York. You guys don't have a clue.
In discourse thou must attend to what is said, and in every movement thou must observe what is doing. And in the one thou shouldst see immediately to what end it refers, but in the other watch carefully what is the thing signified. 5. Is my understanding sufficient for this or not? If it is sufficient, I use it for the work as an instrument given by the universal nature. But if it is not sufficient, then either I retire from the work and give way to him who is able to do it better, unless there be some reason why I ought not to do so, or I do it as well as I can, taking to help me the man who, with the aid of my ruling principle, can do what is now fit and useful for the general good. For whatsoever, either by myself or with another, I can do, ought to be directed to this only, to that which is useful and well suited to society. 6. How many, after being celebrated by fame, have been given up to oblivion? And how many who have celebrated the fame of others have long been dead? 7. Be not ashamed to be helped, for it is thy business to do thy duty like a soldier in the assault on a town. How then, if being lame thou canst not mount up on the battlements alone, but with the help of another, it is possible? 8. Let not future things disturb thee, for thou wilt come to them, if it shall be necessary, having with thee the same reason which thou now usest for present things. 9. All things are implicated with one another, and the bond is holy, and there is hardly anything unconnected with any other thing.
Cool haircut, bro.
For things have been coordinated, and they combine to form the same universe. For there is one universe made up of all things, and one God who pervades all things, and one substance, and one law, one common reason in all intelligent animals, and one truth. If indeed there is also one perfection for all animals
Oh,
which are
this
of the
is
same
weird.
stock and participate in the reason. 10. Everything material soon disappears in the substance of the whole, and everything formal is very soon taken back into the universal reason, and the memory of everything is very soon overwhelmed in time. 11. To the rational animal, the same act is according to nature and according to reason. 12. Be thou erect, or be made erect. 13. Just as it is with the members in those bodies which are united in one, so it is with rational beings which exist separate, for they have been constituted for one cooperation. And the perception of this will be more apparent to thee if thou often sayest to thyself that I am a member of the system of rational beings. But if thou sayest that thou art a part, thou dost not yet love men from thy heart. Beneficence does not yet delight thee for its own sake. Thou still doest it barely as a thing of propriety, and not yet as doing good to thyself. 14. Let there fall externally what will on the parts which can feel the effects of this fall. For those parts which have felt will complain if they choose. But I, unless I think what has happened is an evil, am not injured, and it is in my power not to think so. 15. Whatever anyone does or says, I must be good, just as if the gold or the emerald or the purple were saying this. Whatever anyone does or says, I must be emerald and keep my color. 16. The ruling faculty does not disturb itself. I mean, does not frighten itself or cause itself pain. But if anyone else can frighten or pain it, let him do so. For the faculty itself will not, by its own opinion, turn itself into such ways. Let the body itself take care, if it can, that it suffer nothing, and let it speak if it suffers. But the soul itself, that which is subject to fear, to pain, which has completely the power of forming an opinion about these things, will suffer nothing, for it will never deviate into such a judgment. The leading principle in itself wants nothing, unless it makes a want for itself, and therefore it is both free from perturbation and unimpeded if it does not disturb and impede itself. 17. Eudaimonia, happiness, is a good daemon, or a good thing. What then art thou doing here, O imagination? Go away, I entreat thee by the gods, as thou didst come, for I want thee not. But thou art come according to thy old fashion. I am not angry with thee, only go away. 18. Is any man afraid of change? Why, what can take place without change? What then is more pleasing or more suitable to the universal nature? And canst thou take a bath unless the wood undergoes a change? And canst thou be nourished unless the food undergoes a change? And can anything else that is useful be accomplished without change? Dost thou not see, then, that for thyself also to change is just the same, and equally necessary for the universal nature? 19. Through the universal substance, as through a furious torrent, all bodies are carried, being by their nature united with and cooperating with the whole, as the parts of our body with one another. How many a Chrysippus, how many a Socrates, how many an Epictetus has time already swallowed up? And let the same thought occur to thee with reference to every man and thing. 20. One thing only troubles me, lest I should do something which the constitution of man does not allow, or in the way which it does not allow, or what it does not allow now. 21. Near is thy forgetfulness of all things, and near the forgetfulness of thee by all. 22. It is peculiar to man to love even those who do wrong. And this happens if, when they do wrong, it occurs to thee that they are kinsmen, and that they do wrong through ignorance and unintentionally, and that soon both of you will die, and above all, that the wrongdoer has done thee no harm, for he has not made thy ruling faculty worse than it was before. 23. The universal nature out of the universal substance, as if it were wax, now molds a horse, and when it has broken this up, it uses the material for a tree, then for a man, then for something else. And each of these things subsists for a very short time. But it is no hardship for the vessel to be broken up, just as there was none in its being fastened together. 24. A scowling look is altogether unnatural. When it is often assumed, the result is that all comeliness dies away, and at last is so completely extinguished that it cannot be again lighted up at all. Try to conclude from this very fact that it is contrary to reason. For if even the perception of doing wrong shall depart, what reason is there for living any longer? 25. Nature which governs the whole will soon change all things thou seest, and out of their substance will make other things, and again other things from the substance of them, in order that the world may be ever new. 26. When a man has done thee any wrong, immediately consider with what opinion about good and evil he has done wrong. For when thou hast seen this, thou wilt pity him, and wilt neither wonder nor be angry. For either thou thyself thinkest the same thing to be good that he does, or another thing of the same kind.
Scott!
It is thy duty then to pardon him. But if thou dost not think
Scott, I got bad news.
such things
My car has been towed. It's in an impound lot. My cell phone is in my car.
to be good or evil, thou wilt more readily be well disposed to him who is in error. 27. Think not so much of what thou hast not, as of what thou hast. But of the things which thou hast, select the best, and then reflect how eagerly they would have been sought if thou hadst them not. At the same time, however, take care that thou dost not, through being so pleased with them, accustom thyself to overvalue them, so as to be disturbed if ever thou shouldst not have them. 28. Retire into thyself. The rational principle which rules has this nature, that it is content with itself when it does what is just, and so secures tranquility. 29. Wipe out imagination. Stop
How do they know
the
it's
pulling of the
Edmund?
strings. Confine thyself to the present. Understand well what happens either to thee or to another. Divide and distribute every object into the causal and the material. Think of thy last hour. Let the wrong which is done by a man stay there where the wrong was done. 30. Direct thy attention to what is said. Let thy understanding enter into the things that are doing, and the things which do them. 31. Adorn thyself with simplicity and modesty, and with indifference towards the things which lie between virtue and vice. Love mankind, follow God. The poet says that law rules all, and it is enough to remember that law rules all. 32. About death, whether it is a dispersion or a resolution into atoms, or annihilation, it is either extinction or change. 33. About pain. The pain which is intolerable carries us off, but that which lasts a long time is tolerable, and the mind maintains its own tranquility by retiring into itself, and the ruling faculty is not made worse. But the parts which are harmed by pain, let them, if they can, give their opinion about it. 34. About fame. Look at the minds of those who seek fame. Observe what they are, and what kind of things they avoid, and what kind of things they pursue. And consider that as the heaps of sand piled on one another hide the former sands, so in life the events which go before are soon covered by those which come after. 35. From Plato. The man who has an elevated mind and takes a view of all time and of all substance, dost thou suppose it possible for him to think that human life is anything great? It is not possible, he said. Such a man, then, will think that death also is no evil. Certainly not. 36. From Antisthenes. It is royal to do good and to be abused for it. 37. It is a base thing for the countenance to be obedient and to regulate and compose itself as the mind commands, and for the mind not to be regulated and composed by itself. 38. It is not right to vex ourselves at things, for they care naught about it. 39. To the immortal gods, and give us joy. 40. Life must be reaped like the ripe ears of corn. One man is born, another dies. 41. If gods care not for me and my children, there is a reason for it.
Crazy.
42. For the good is with me, and the just. 43. No joining others in their wailing, no violent emotion. 44. From Plato. But I would make this man a sufficient answer, which is this: Thou sayest not well if thou thinkest that a man who is good for anything at all ought to compute the hazard of life or death, and should not rather look to this only in all that he does, whether he is doing what is just or unjust, and the works of a good or a bad man. 45. For thus it is, men of Athens, in truth, wherever a man has placed himself, thinking it the best place for him, or has been placed by a commander, there, in my opinion, he ought to stay, and to abide the hazard, taking nothing into the reckoning, either death or anything else, before the baseness of deserting his post. 46. But, my good friend, reflect whether that which is noble and good is not something different from saving and being saved. For as to a man living such or such a time, at least one who is really a man, consider if this is not a thing to be dismissed from the thoughts. And there must be no love of life. But as to these matters, a man must entrust them to the deity, and believe what the women say, that no man can escape his destiny, the next inquiry being how he may best live the time that he has to live. 7. Look around at the courses of the stars as if thou wert going along with them, and constantly consider the changes of the elements into one another, for such thoughts purge away the filth of the terrene life. 48. This is a fine saying of Plato, that he who is discoursing about men should look also at earthly things as if he viewed them from some higher place, should look at them in their assemblies, armies, agricultural labors, marriages, treaties, births, deaths, noise of the courts of justice, desert places, various nations of barbarians, feasts, lamentations, markets, a mixture of all things, and an orderly combination of contraries. 49. Consider the past. Such great changes of political supremacies, thou mayest foresee also the things which will be. For they will certainly be of like form, and it is not possible that they should deviate from the order of the things which take place now. Accordingly, to have contemplated human life for 40 years is the same as to have contemplated it for 10,000 years, for what more wilt thou see? 50. That which has grown from the earth to the earth, but that which has sprung from heavenly seed back to the heavenly realms returns. This is either a dissolution of the mutual involution of the atoms, or a similar dispersion of the unsentient elements. 51. With food and drinks and cunning magic arts, turning the channel's course to escape from death, the breeze which heaven has sent, we must endure and toil without complaining.
I'm safe, comfortable.
52. Another may be more expert in casting his opponent, but he is not more social, nor more modest, nor better disciplined to meet all that happens, nor more considerate with respect to the faults of his neighbours. 53. Where any work can be done comfortably to the reason which is common to gods and men, there we have nothing to fear. For where we are able to get profit by means of the activity which is successful and proceeds according to our constitution, there no harm is to be suspected. 54. Everywhere and at all times it is in thy power piously to acquiesce in thy present condition, and to behave justly to those who are about thee, and to exert thy skill upon thy present thoughts, that nothing shall steal into them without being well examined.
It's Exodus.
55. Do not look around thee to discover other men's ruling principles, but look straight to this, to what nature leads thee, both the universal nature through the things which happen to thee, and thy own nature through the acts which must be done by thee. But every being ought to do that which is according to its constitution, and all other things have been constituted for the sake of rational beings, just as among irrational things the inferior for the sake of the superior, but the rational for the sake of one another. The prime principle, then, in man's constitution is the social, and the second is not to yield to the persuasions of the body, for it is the peculiar office of the rational and intelligent motion to circumscribe itself, and never to be overpowered either by the motion of the senses or of the appetites, for both are animal. But the intelligent motion claims superiority and does not permit itself to be overpowered by the others. And with good reason, for it is formed by nature to use all of them. The third thing in the rational constitution is freedom from error and from deception. Let the ruling principle holding fast to these things go straight on, and it has what is its own. 56. Consider thyself to be dead, and to have completed thy life up to the present time, and live according to nature the remainder which is allowed to thee. 57. Love that only which happens to thee, and is spun with the thread of thy destiny. For what is more suitable? 58. In everything which happens, keep before thy eyes those to whom the same things happened, and how they were vexed, and treated them as strange things, and found fault with them. And now where are they? Nowhere. Why then dost thou too choose to act in the same way? And why dost thou not leave these agitations which are foreign to nature, to those who cause them, and to those who are moved by them? And why art thou not altogether intent upon the right way of making use of the things which happen to thee? For then thou wilt use them well, and they will be a material for thee to work on. Only attend to thyself, and resolve to be a good man in every act which thou doest. 59. Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up, if thou wilt ever dig. 60. The body ought to be compact, and to show no irregularity either in motion or attitude. For what the mind shows in the face by maintaining it in the expression of intelligence and propriety, that ought to be required also in the whole body. But all these things should be observed without affectation. 61. The art of life is more like the wrestler's art than the dancer's, in this respect, that it should stand ready and firm to meet onsets which are sudden and unexpected. 62. Constantly observe who those are whose approbation thou wishest to have, and what ruling principles they possess. For then thou wilt neither blame those who offend involuntarily, nor wilt thou want their approbation, if thou lookest to the sources of their opinions and appetites. 63. Every soul, the philosopher says, is involuntarily deprived of truth. Consequently, in the same way, it is deprived of justice and temperance, and benevolence, and everything of the kind. It is most necessary to bear this constantly in mind, for thus thou wilt be more gentle towards all. 64. In every pain let this thought be present, that there is no dishonour in it, nor does it make the governing intelligence worse, for it does not damage the intelligence, either so far as the intelligence is rational, or so far as it is social. Indeed, in the case of most pains, let this remark of Epicurus aid thee, that pain is neither intolerable nor everlasting, if thou bearest in mind that it has its limits, and if thou addest nothing to it in imagination. And remember this, too, that we do not perceive that many things which are disagreeable to us are the same as pain, such as excessive drowsiness, and being scorched by heat, and having no appetite. When then thou art discontented by any of these things, say to thyself that thou art yielding to pain. 65. Take care not to feel towards the inhuman as they feel towards men. 66. How do we know if Telauges was not superior in character to Socrates? For it is not enough that Socrates died a more noble death, and disputed more skillfully with the sophists, and passed the night in the cold with more endurance, and that when he was bid to arrest Leon of Salamis, he considered it more noble to refuse, and that he walked in a swaggering way in the streets, though as to this fact one may have great doubts if it was true. But we ought to inquire what kind of soul it was that Socrates possessed, and if he was able to be content with being just towards men and pious towards the gods, neither idly vexed on account of men's villainy, nor yet making himself a slave to any man's ignorance, nor receiving as strange anything that fell to his share out of the universe, nor enduring it as intolerable, nor allowing his understanding to sympathize with the effects of the miserable flesh. 67. Nature has not so mingled with the composition of the body as not to have allowed thee the power of circumscribing thyself and of bringing under subjection to thyself all that is thy own. For it is very possible to be a divine man and to be recognized as such by no one. Always bear this in mind. And another thing, too, that very little indeed is necessary for a happy life. And because thou hast despaired of becoming a dialectician and skilled in the knowledge of nature, do not, for this reason, renounce the hope of being both free and modest, and social and obedient to God. 68. It is in thy power to live free from all compulsion in the greatest tranquillity of mind, even if all the world cry out against thee as much as they choose, and even if wild beasts tear in pieces the members of this kneaded matter which has grown around thee. For what hinders the mind in the midst of all this from maintaining itself in tranquillity and in a just judgment of all surrounding things, and in a ready use of the objects which are presented to it, so that the judgment may say to the thing which falls under its observation, this thou art in substance, though in men's opinion thou mayest appear to be of a different kind. And the use shall say to that which falls under the hand, thou art the thing I was seeking. For to me, that which presents itself is always a material for virtue, both rational and political, and in a word, for the exercise of art, which belongs to man or God. For everything which happens has a relationship either to God or man, and is neither new nor difficult to handle, but usual and apt matter to work on. 69. The perfection of moral character consists in this, in passing every day as the last, and in being neither violently excited, nor torpid, nor playing the hypocrite.
Okay, girl. How's your husband?
70. The gods who are immortal are not
How's your
vexed
husband?
because during so long a time they
How's
must
your
tolerate
husband?
continually men such as they are, and so many of them
How's your
bad.
husband?
And besides this, they also take care of them in all ways. But thou, who art destined to end so soon, art thou wearied of enduring the bad, and this too when thou art one of them? 71. It is a ridiculous thing for a man not to fly from his own badness, which is indeed possible, but to fly from other men's badness, which is impossible. 72. Whatever the rational and political faculty finds to be neither intelligent nor social, it properly judges to be inferior to itself. 73. When thou hast done a good act, and another has received it, why dost thou still look for a third thing besides these, as fools do,
Hey.
either to have the reputation of having done a good act, or to obtain a return? 74. No man is tired of receiving what is useful, but it is useful to act according to nature. Do not, then, be tired of receiving what is useful by doing it to others.
Nice try, Diddy.
75.
Nice
The
try,
nature of
Diddy.
all moved to make the universe.
Nice try, Diddy.
But now, either everything that takes place comes by way of consequence or continuity, or even the chief things towards which the ruling power of the universe directs its own movement are governed by no rational principle. If this is remembered, it will make thee more tranquil in many things.
Oh my God.
Book 8. 1. This reflection also tends to the removal of the desire of empty fame, that it is no longer in thy power to have lived the whole of thy life, or at least thy life from thy youth upwards, like a philosopher. But both to many others and to thyself, it is plain that thou art far from philosophy. Thou hast fallen into disorder then, so that it is no longer easy for thee to get the reputation of a philosopher, and thy plan of life also opposes it. If, then, thou hast truly seen where the matter lies, throw away the thought how thou shalt seem to others, and be content if thou shalt live the rest of thy life in such wise as thy nature wills. Observe then what it wills, and let nothing else distract thee, for thou hast had experience of many wanderings without having found happiness anywhere, not in syllogisms, nor in wealth, nor in reputation, nor in enjoyment, nor anywhere. Where is it, then? In doing what man's nature requires. How then shall a man do this? If he has principles from which come his affects and his acts. What principles? Those which relate to good and bad. The belief that there is nothing good for man which does not make him just, temperate, manly, free. And there is nothing bad which does not do the contrary to what has been mentioned. 2. On the occasion of every act, ask thyself, how is this with respect to me? Shall I repent of it? A little time, and I am dead, and all is gone. What more do I seek if what I am now doing is the work of an intelligent living being, and a social being, and one who is under the same law with God? 3. Alexander and Gaius and Pompeius, what are they in comparison with Diogenes and Heraclitus and Socrates? For the latter were acquainted with things and their causes and their matter, and the ruling principles of these men were the same. But as to the former, how many things they had to care for, and to how many things were they slaves? 4. Consider that men will do the same things nevertheless, even though thou shouldst burst. 5. This is the chief thing. Be not perturbed, for all things are according to the nature of the universal, and in a little time thou wilt be nobody and nowhere, like Hadrian.
Is a good candidate for president? Like,
when did I say that?
objectively? I'm asking you.
Okay, let me just go back to everything we've been talking about. We've been talking about if she has a chance. We didn't talk about my personal view about her. I said if she has a chance. And why this is very crucial for everybody to observe if she has chances is for us to come up with tactics to cut off ways for her to get that possibility. So coming to the realization that she actually has a chance, like you said a statistic that is 1%. That 1% actually matters because there are people that are going to vote for her. There are people that are rooting for her, and this is, I see on the Republican side that this is ignored. People look over this, and it's wrong. We need to address it right now when it's fresh and get rid of it.
Do you think that she's the best the Democratic Party has to offer? Because that's really the question.
No, I know.
Exactly. I don't think she's
No, I don't think she's the best.
Democratic Party's not going to allow her to trick people into thinking she can win when she can't. I feel like that's dumb.
I feel she has a chance winning. I don't think she's the best. I don't think she's the smartest, but I feel that she has a chance because of how the world is turning today. People don't. Pardon?
Based on what does she have a real chance of winning in 2028?
I mean, if you look at the Democratic Party, most of them don't know why they're voting for her. Some of them are voting for her because she's black. Some of them are voting for her because they're pro-modern feminism. There are different reasons that Democrats would want to vote for her. But all those reasons still count as a vote towards her. I'm just looking at everything abstract.
Then why does she do poorer in key demographics that Democrats usually win than even Joe Biden in 2020?
So now we're not talking about the possibility of her winning again. We're talking about this past election.
We're talking about actual data in terms of actual votes cast.
I mean, Trump did win, but he didn't win with a landslide.
Yes, he did.
No,
he actually did. Yes,
no,
he
didn't.
Okay, what's a landslide?
Let me go back to the stats. Give me 1 second. It actually popped up on my AI overview.
Do you know that he had a portion of the youth vote? No Republican candidate had gotten a higher percentage of the youth vote than Richard
Texas boy from the Rio Grande Valley.
Well, it's just sad because Trump wasn't even that good of a candidate.
There's a problem. That's what I'm saying. So this idea that the Kamala Harris can win is weird. I don't understand. It just seems born of delusion. That's what it seems like.
She might win. How I'm seeing it right now depends on how it goes this 4 years. If Trump steps on some toes, things might rise up and people might be pro-Kamala, just like the elections, how we saw that one time the whole world was against her, then the next day
she has a better chance than like
it might all change. You never know.
Wes Moore, all of these high-profile people who everybody's talking about. You really believe that Kamala Harris is more formidable than these people?
Like you saw this past elections, like you said, Kamala, and I'm going to agree with you. Kamala is not the smartest person to be running for seats, but she did, and she got a high number of votes. She got, okay, let me pull up that stat. She got about 75 million votes. That's actually more than I thought that she could get. That's why I don't want to doubt her. I don't want to just play, oh, she's never going to win. No. I feel like she has a chance. If she can do that the first time, I think the second time, she's going to be more equipped, and she's going to be more strategized on how to run for the next presidential seat. We don't know. I can't conclude
but
because things do happen in the space before.
Vote for president since 2004. That's sad. That's pathetic.
I mean, there are presidents that got way lower votes and didn't win, but they were extremely smart people. So I can't go.
Four elections, Democrats undefeated in the popular vote, and now all of a sudden they lost one.
to a convicted felon. That's embarrassing. Like, that's just objectively embarrassing. I don't understand what you don't understand about that.
I don't understand what
Not a
your
good
point
job.
is. I thought we were talking about Kamala. Like,
I know. I'm saying if she
You
can't
think Trump
even
now?
beat the felon who tried to do an insurrection, why do you think she can beat a regular Republican like Vance or something?
because she's
I'm
not.
not serious. I'm seriously asking. Like, I don't understand.
So the only way she can beat someone like Vance is that if she can prove that she can provide policies that help working people. That's
Why do
how
you think she can do that when she just failed miserably to do just that for the second time?
But that's what I'm saying. That's the only way she can win, if she can provide policies that help working people.
The irony is, I think that J.D. Vance would trounce her in a debate. Because he's actually way better than Trump. Trump sucks at debate. But that word salad shit, that's not going to work. And people are going to see it coming even more next time than this time. I don't know, bro. Like, to be fair, she would, I mean, if she's going to do it the right way, she would go through a primary. And she probably would lose at that point. But if she went through the primary and then she still came out victorious, okay, that would inspire confidence, to be fair. And then she'd have a full election cycle to make the case to voters. And she wouldn't have to pretend like Joe Biden was the shit. She could just talk shit about the incoming administration.
She's got to take it. She's got to take it seriously too. If she's always laughing and cackling over stuff that's really serious, like immigration or whatever, I can't take her seriously if she's always laughing about these things that matter a lot. Like, I don't know. I just.
She's laughing nervously because she knows that she caused the problem, so it's hard for her to address
But
it.
the situation would be different in 2028 because she wouldn't be an incumbent in any sense. She could run on a referendum more effectively because the other party would have been in office for 4 years. So she can make a way more convincing case just based on the situation that the other side is bad and that we shouldn't have them return to office. Especially given the things that Trump says he wants to do, which could backfire in humongous ways, right? So, like, I'm trying to be fair about this idea, but, like, it just feels like the Democratic Party can pick better candidates to make that case.
People were so sick of Trump after the first 4 years by 2020 that they literally voted for a guy who was half dead just to relieve the anxiety.
She could benefit from something like that. People will overlook her shortcomings in the same way. But what I'm saying is, if the Democrats are smart, they wouldn't allow that. They would actually go through a primary process. And I'm pretty confident that primary process would yield her losing. Like, people wouldn't want her over Wes Moore or Gavin Newsom or whoever. I think she would fall behind just like last time.
Well, the thing is, they didn't have time to do a primary properly.
I know, but they would this time.
And then the other thing, I don't think she would last long in a primary.
Yeah, 2027 would be when they would start all this shit. And I mean, that's when we'll know for sure. But I'm filled with doubt that this woman is like, she wasn't even the best choice they could have made this time. But she was the best given the situation. But she wasn't the best objectively. And I think most Democrats know that. So I don't know. It's just, to me, it's delusional. I don't get why we have to pretend like she was awesome, even though we know she wasn't.
Well, I mean,
women liked seeing her up there for sure. Women really felt a surge of pride to see a woman up there and a black woman to boot. And you can't discount that. There's a certain identity factor. It's not like, I don't know, blonde assholes, from Queens felt a surge of pride because Trump was up there. That was a different thing going on. She had the identity vote for sure.
But, like, I feel like, generally speaking, Americans can see through the identity politics. They want to pick someone who's going to be a good candidate for their pocketbook, you know?
That has begun. people got sick of it by the time of this 2024 election. I don't think it's spread through the whole culture, but the edifice is cracking for sure. The facade is cracking.
All right, let's get to the Democratic brand and why, according to this opinion piece, it's in the gutter. It says 4 writers deep dive into the party's distress. This was written the day before Christmas Eve, so 2 days ago. All right, by Frank Bruni, Tim Ryan, Anat Shenker Osario, and Liz Smith.
I don't know.
Mr. Bruni is a contributing opinion writer. Mr. Ryan is a former congressman from Ohio. Ms. Shenker Osario is the host of the podcast Words to Win By. And Ms. Smith was a senior advisor to Pete Buttigieg's presidential campaign. Just so you guys know who these people are.
Bruni is a well-respected writer, for sure. He used to be a food critic, but he's a smart guy.
Okay, Frank Bruni, a contributing opinion writer, hosted a written online conversation with Tim Ryan, a former representative from Ohio, Anat Shenker Osario, a political researcher, a campaign advisor and host of the podcast Words to Win By, and Liz Smith, a Democratic communication strategist and author of the memoir Any Given Tuesday, a political love story. They discussed the future of the Democratic Party and its leadership. Frank Bruni, Liz, Tim, Anat, in about a month, Donald Trump will be inaugurated and Republicans will control both chambers of Congress. Happy holidays. Judged by sheer volume of words that have been written and spoken since November 5th about their party's comeuppance, Democrats have gone beyond soul searching to soul spelunking. They've descended into a whole new subterranean caverns of analysis. But what they're seeing and saying is all over the place. In your opinion, what's the one biggest reason behind the key factor explaining what happened to Democrats in 2024, and tell me why it or trumps all the others? Liz Smith is answering. The Democratic brand is in the toilet. Many of the Democrats who succeeded this cycle, our best overperformers in House races, for instance, are people who ran against the Democratic Party brand. Trump tore down the blue wall in the industrial Midwest, but he also expanded his vote the most in our bluest and most urban areas. Bruni, the toilet? Yikes, Liz, that's severe. Do you really think it's that bad? Smith, when the best way to win as a candidate is to run against your own party, it's that bad. Our candidates down ballot are good. It's that the D next to their name means the status quo that people don't like. Bruni, do you also think it's that bad, Tim and Anat? Tim, the Dems got pinned as the status quo party on inflation, instability, insecurity, and every other issue facing working people. Trump was the change candidate in a year when 65% of people thought we were on the wrong track, and they failed to redefine themselves on the culture issues on which they were on the other side of 60% to 70% of Americans. Anat, well, toilets have clear utilities, so perhaps the comparison is even generous. But I think it's bigger than Democrats. Voters outside of hard partisans think most politicians lie at least some of the time. I know. We just asked them in a survey. 72% of them said this of Republican leaders, and 70% said this of Democrats. This is astonishingly good for authoritarians. What it means, and we hear this nearly every focus group we do, is that they discount the threats of MAGA. It sounds like this. Well, Trump should be beginning to look a lot like Christmas. So, keep his base engaged and enraged, while also seeming like the guy who's just going to give you a personally signed check. Meanwhile, it's absolutely detrimental to Democrats because their purported achievements, desirable agenda, and dire warnings are all not credited as real. Nationally, extrapolating from AP Votecast data, 19 million Biden 2020 voters sat it out this time. This was mainly a lurching couch word, not right word. Why? Voters here and around the world are looking around at what there is on offer and saying, not this. All right, that's some of the conversation that took place. I think it was kind of a podcast one, but I was just reading some of the transcript. What do you guys think so far about the commentary about the Democratic brand being in the toilet?
Customize and save with Liberty Mutual. Customize and save.
The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. Translation by George Long. Narrated by Robin Homer. Book 1. Debts and Lessons. 1. From my grandfather Verus, I learned good morals and the government of my temper. 2. From the reputation and remembrance of my father, modesty and a manly character.
Why should we
3. From my mother, piety and beneficence, and abstinence, not only from evil deeds, but even from evil thoughts, and further, simplicity in the way of living, far removed from the habits of the rich. 4. From my great-grandfather, not to have frequented public schools, and to have had good teachers at home, and to know that on such things a man should spend liberally. 5. From my governor, to be neither of the green nor of the blue party at the games in the circus, nor a partisan either of the Parmilarius or of the Scutarius at the gladiators' fights. From him, too, I learned endurance of labour, and to want little, and to work with my own hands, and not to meddle with other people's affairs, and not to be ready to listen to slander. 6. From Diognetus, not to busy myself about trifling things, and not to give credit to what was said by miracle workers and jugglers about incantations and the driving away of demons and such things, and not to breed quail before fighting, nor to give myself up passionately to such things, and to endure freedom of speech, and to have become intimate with philosophy, and to have been a hearer first of Bacchius, then of Tandasis and Marcianus, and to have written dialogues in my youth, and to have desired a plank bed and skin, and whatever else of the kind belongs to the Grecian discipline. 7. From Rusticus, I received the impression that my character required improvement and discipline, and from him I learned not to be led astray to sophistic emulation, nor to writing on speculative matters, nor to delivering little hortatory orations, nor showing myself off as a man who practices much discipline, or does benevolent acts in order to make a display, and to abstain from rhetoric and poetry and fine writing, and not to walk about in the house in my outdoor dress, nor to do other things of the kind, and to write my letters with simplicity, like the letter which Rusticus wrote from Sinuessa to my mother. And with respect to those who have offended me by words or done me wrong, to be easily disposed to be pacified and reconciled as soon as they have shown a readiness to be reconciled, and to read carefully, and not to be satisfied with a superficial understanding of a book, nor hastily to give my assent to those who talk overmuch. And I am indebted to him for being acquainted with the discourses of Epictetus, which he communicated to me out of his own collection. 8. From Apollonius I learned freedom of will and undeviating steadfastness of purpose, and to look to nothing else, not even for a moment, except to reason, and to be always the same, in sharp pains, on the occasion of the loss of a child, and in long illness, and to see clearly, in a living example, that the same man can be both most resolute and yielding, and not peevish in giving his instruction, and to have had before my eyes a man who clearly considered his experience and his skill in expanding philosophical principles as the smallest of his merits. And from him I learned how to receive from friends what are esteemed favours, without being either humbled by them or letting them pass unnoticed. 9. From Sextus, a benevolent disposition, and the example of a family governed in a fatherly manner, and the idea of living conformably to nature, and gravity without affection, and to look carefully after the interests of friends, and to tolerate ignorant persons and those who form opinions without consideration. He had the power of readily accommodating himself to all, so that intercourse with him was more agreeable than any flattery, and at the same time he was most highly venerated by those who associated with him, and he had the faculty both of discovering and ordering, in an intelligent and methodical way, the principles necessary for life, and he never showed anger or any other passion, but was entirely free from passion, and also most affectionate. And he could express approbation without noisy display, and he possessed much knowledge without ostentation. 10. From Alexander the grammarian, to refrain from fault-finding, and not in a reproachful way to chide those who uttered any barbarous or solipsistic or strange-sounding expression, but dexterously to introduce the very expression which ought to have been used, and in the way of giving answer, or giving confirmation, or joining in an inquiry about the thing itself, not about the word, or by some other fit suggestion. 11. From Fronto, I learned to observe what envy and duplicity and hypocrisy are in a tyrant, and that generally those among us who are called patricians are rather deficient in paternal affection. 12. From Alexander the Platonic, not frequently, nor without necessity, to say to any one, or to write in a letter, that I have no leisure, nor continually to excuse the neglect of duties required by our relation to those with whom we live, by alleging urgent occupations.
All the communist aldermen selling and
13. From Catullus, not to be indifferent when a friend finds fault, even if he should find fault without reason, but to try to restore him to his usual disposition. And to be ready to speak well of teachers, as it is reported of Domitius and Athenodotus, and to love my children truly. 14. From my brother Severus, to love my kin, and to love truth, and to love justice, and through him I learned to know Thrasea, Helvidius, Cato, Dion, Brutus, and from him I received the idea of a polity in which there is the same law for all, a polity administered with regard to equal rights and equal freedom of speech, and the idea of a kingly government which respects most of all the freedom of the governed. I learned from him also consistency and undeviating steadiness in my regard for philosophy, and a disposition to do good, and to give to others readily, and to cherish good hopes, and to believe that I am loved by my friends. And in him I observed no concealment of his opinions with respect to those whom he condemned, and that his friends had no need to conjecture what he wished or did not wish, but it was quite plain. 15. From Maximus I learned self-government, and not to be led aside by anything, and cheerfulness in all circumstances, as well as in illness, and a just admixture in the moral character of sweetness and dignity, and to do what was set before me without complaining. I observed that everybody believed that he thought as he spoke, and that in all that he did he never had any bad intention, and he never showed amazement and surprise, and was never in a hurry, and never put off doing a thing, nor was perplexed, nor dejected, nor did he ever laugh to disguise his vexation, nor, on the other hand, was he ever passionate or suspicious. He was accustomed to do acts of beneficence, and was ready to forgive, and was free from all falsehood, and he presented the appearance of a man who could not be diverted from right, rather than of a man who had been improved. I observed, too, that no man could ever think that he was despised by Maximus, or ever venture to think himself a better man. He also had the art of being humorous in an agreeable way. 16. In my father I observed mildness of temper, and unchangeable resolution in the things which he had determined after due deliberation, and no vain glory in those things which men call honours, and a love of labour and perseverance, and a readiness to listen to those who had anything to propose for the common weal, and undeviating firmness in giving to every man according to his deserts, and a knowledge derived from experience of the occasions for vigorous action and for remission. And I observed that he had overcome all passion for boys, and he considered himself no more than any other citizen, and he released his friends from all obligation to sup with him or to attend him of necessity when he went abroad, and those who had failed to accompany him by reason of any urgent circumstances always found him the same. I observed, too, his habit of careful inquiry in all matters of deliberation, and his persistency, and that he never stopped his investigation through being satisfied with appearances which first present themselves, and that his disposition was to keep his friends and not to be soon tired of them, nor yet to be extravagant in his affection, and to be satisfied on all occasions, and cheerful, and to foresee things a long way off, and to provide for the smallest without display, and to check immediately popular applause and all flattery, and to be ever watchful over the things which were necessary for the administration of the empire, and to be a good manager of the expenditure, and to patiently endure the blame which he got for such conduct. And he was neither superstitious with respect to the gods, nor did he court men by gifts, or by trying to please them, or by flattering the populace, but he showed sobriety in all things, and firmness, and never any mean thoughts or action, nor love of novelty. And the things which conduce in any way to the commodity of life, and of which fortune gives an abundant supply, he used without arrogance and without excusing himself, so that when he had them, he enjoyed them without affectation, and when he had them not, he did not want them. No one could ever say of him that he was either a sophist or a homebred, flippant slave or a pedant, but everyone acknowledged him to be a man ripe, perfect, above flattery, able to manage his own and other men's affairs. Besides this, he honoured those who were true philosophers, and he did not reproach those who pretended to be philosophers, nor yet was he easily led by them. He was also easy in conversation, and he made himself agreeable without any offensive affection. He took a reasonable care of his body's health, not as one who was greatly attached to life, nor out of regard to personal appearance, nor yet in a careless way, but so that through his own attention he very seldom stood in need of the physician's art or of medicine or external applications. He was most ready to give without envy to those who possessed any particular faculty, such as that of eloquence or knowledge of the law or of morals or of anything else, and he gave them his help, that each might enjoy reputation according to his deserts. And he always acted conformably to the institutions of his country, without showing any affection of doing so. Further, he was not fond of change, nor unsteady, but he loved to stay in the same places, and to employ himself about the same things, and after his paroxysms of headache, he came immediately fresh and vigorous to his usual occupations. His secrets were not many, but very few and very rare, and these only about public matters. And he showed prudence and economy in the exhibition of the public spectacles and the construction of public buildings, his donations to the people, and in such things. For he was a man who looked to what ought to be done, not to the reputation which is got by a man's acts. He did not take the bath at unseasonable hours. He was not fond of building houses, nor curious about what he ate, nor about the texture and colour of his clothes, nor about the beauty of his slaves. His dress came from Lorium, his villa on the coast, and from Lanuvium generally. We know how he behaved to the toll collector at Tusculum, who asked his pardon, and such was all his behaviour. There was in him nothing harsh, nor implacable, nor violent, nor, as one may say, anything carried to the sweating point, but he examined all things severally, as if he had abundance of time, and without confusion, in an orderly way, vigorously and consistently. And that might be applied to him which is recorded of Socrates, that he was able both to abstain from and to enjoy those things which many are too weak to abstain from, and cannot enjoy without excess. But to be strong enough both to bear the one and to be sober in the other is the mark of a man who has a perfect and invincible soul, such as he showed in the illness of Maximus. 17. To the gods I am indebted for having good grandfathers, good parents, a good sister, good teachers, good associates, good kinsmen and friends, nearly everything good. Further, I owe it to the gods that I was not hurried into any offence against any of them, though I had a disposition which, if opportunity had offered, might have led me to do something of this kind. But through their favour there never was such a concurrence of circumstances as put me to the trial. Further, I am thankful to the gods that I was not longer brought up by my grandfather's concubine, and that I preserved the flower of my youth, and that I did not make proof of my virility before the proper season, but even deferred the time, that I was subjected to a ruler and a father who was able to take away all pride from me, and to bring me to the knowledge that it is possible for a man to live in a palace without wanting either guards or embroidered dresses, or torches and statues and such like show, but that it is in such a man's power to bring himself very near to the fashion of a private person, without being, for this reason, either meaner in thought or more remiss in action, with respect to the things which must be done for the public interest in a manner that befits a ruler. I thank the gods for giving me such a brother, who was able by his moral character to rouse me to vigilance over myself, and who at the same time pleased me by his respect and affection, that my children have not been stupid nor deformed in body, that I did not make more proficiency in rhetoric, poetry, and the other studies, in which I should perhaps have been completely engaged if I had seen that I was making progress in them, that I made haste to place those who brought me up in the station of honour, which they seemed to desire, without putting them off with the hope of my doing it some other time after, because they were still young, that I knew Apollonius, Rusticus, Maximus, that I received clear and frequent impressions about living according to nature and what kind of life that is, so that, so far as depended on the gods and their gifts and help and inspirations, nothing hindered me from forthwith living according to nature, though I still fall short of it through my own fault, and through not observing the admonitions of the gods, and, I may almost say, their direct instructions. That my body has held out so long in such a kind of life, that I never touched either Benedicta or Theodotus, and that, after having fallen into amatory passions, I was cured, and though I was often out of humour with Rusticus, I never did anything of which I had occasion to repent. That, though it was my mother's fate to die young, she spent the last years of her life with me. That, whenever I wished to help any man in his need, or on any other occasion, I was never told that I had not the means of doing it, and that to myself the same necessity never happened, to receive anything from another. That I have such a wife, so obedient and so affectionate and so simple, that I had abundance of good masters for my children, and that remedies have been shown to me by dreams, both others and against blood-spitting and giddiness, and that, when I had an inclination to philosophy, I did not fall into the hands of any sophist, and that I did not waste my time on writers of histories, or in the resolution of syllogisms, or occupy myself about the investigation of appearances in the heavens, for all these things require the help of the gods and fortune. Book 2, Among the Quadi and the Granua. Begin the morning by saying to thyself, I shall meet with the busybody, the ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, unsocial. All these things happen to them by reason of their ignorance of what is good and evil. But I, who have seen the nature of the good, that it is beautiful, and of the bad, that it is ugly, and the nature of him who does wrong, that it is akin to me, not only of the same blood or seed, but that it participates in the same intelligence, and the same portion of the divinity. I can neither be injured by any of them, for no one can fix on me what is ugly, nor can I be angry with my kinsman, nor hate him. For we are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of the upper and lower teeth. To act against one another, then, is contrary to nature, and it is acting against one another to be vexed and to turn away. 2. Whatever this is that I am, it is a little flesh and breath, and the ruling part. Throw away thy books, no longer distract thyself, it is not allowed. But as if thou wast now dying, despise the flesh. It is blood and bones and network, a contexture of nerves, veins, and arteries. See the breath also, what kind of thing it is, air, and not always the same, but every moment sent out and again sucked in. The third, then, is the root. Consider thus, thou art an old man. No longer let this be a slave, no longer be pulled by the strings like a puppet to unsocial movements, no longer be either dissatisfied with thy present lot, or shrink from the future. 3. All that is from the gods is full of providence. That which is from fortune is not separated from nature, or without an interweaving and involution with the things which are ordered by providence. From thence all things flow, and there is besides necessity, and that which is for the advantage of the whole universe, of which thou art a part. But that is good for every part of nature, which the nature of the whole brings, and what serves to maintain this nature. Now the universe is preserved, as by the changes of the elements, so by the changes of things compounded of the elements. Let these principles be enough for thee, let them always be fixed opinions. But cast away the thirst after books, that thou mayest die not murmuring, but cheerfully, truly, and from thy heart, thankful to the gods. 4. Remember how long thou hast been putting off these things, and how often thou hast received an opportunity from the gods, and yet dost not use it. Thou must now at last perceive of what universe thou art a part, and of what administrator of the universe thy existence is an efflux, and that a limit of time is fixed for thee, which if thou dost not use for clearing away the clouds from thy mind, it will go, and thou wilt go, and it will never return. 5. Every moment think steadily as a Roman and a man to do what thou hast in hand with perfect and simple dignity, and feeling of affection and freedom and justice, and to give thyself relief from all other thoughts. And thou wilt give thyself relief, if thou dost every act of thy life as if it were the last, laying aside all carelessness and passionate aversion from the commands of reason, and all hypocrisy and self-love, and discontent with the portion which has been given to thee. Thou seest how few the things are, the which, if a man lays hold of them, he is able to live a life which flows in quiet, and is like the existence of the gods. For the gods, on their part, will require nothing more from him who observes these things. 6. Do wrong to thyself, my soul, but thou wilt no longer have the opportunity of honouring thyself. Every man's life is sufficient, but thine is nearly finished, though thy soul reverences not itself, but places thy felicity in the souls of others. 7. Do the things external which fall upon thee distract thee. Give thyself time to learn something new and good, and cease to be whirled around. But then thou must also avoid being carried about the other way, for those too are triflers who have wearied themselves in life by their activity, and yet have no object to which to direct every movement, and, in a word, all their thoughts.
Daniel Penny made the subway less safe.
Though not observing what is in the mind of another man has seldom been seen to be unhappy, but those who do not observe the movements of their own minds must of necessity be unhappy. 9. This thou must always bear in mind. What is the nature of the whole, and what is my nature, and how this is related to that, and what kind of a part it is of what kind of a whole, and that there is no one who hinders thee from always doing and saying the things which are according to the nature of which thou art a part. 10. Theophrastus, in his comparison of bad acts, such a comparison as one would make in accordance with the common notions of mankind, says, like a true philosopher, that the offences which are committed through desire are more blamable than those which are committed through anger. For he who is excited by anger seems to turn away from reason with a certain pain and unconscious contraction, but he who offends through desire, being overpowered by pleasure, seems to be in a manner more intemperate and more womanish in his offences. Rightly, then, and in a way worthy of philosophy, he said that the offence which is committed with pleasure is more blamable than that which is committed with pain, and on the whole, the one is more like a person who has been first wronged and through pain is compelled to be angry, but the other is moved by his own impulse to do wrong, being carried towards doing something by desire. 11. Since it is possible that thou mayest depart from life this very moment, regulate every act and thought accordingly. But to go away from among men, if there are no gods, is not a thing to be afraid of, for the gods will not involve thee in evil. But if indeed they do exist, or if they have no concern about human affairs, what is it to me to live in a universe devoid of gods or devoid of providence? But in truth they do exist, and they do care for human things, and they have put all the means in man's power to enable him not to fall into real evils. And as to the rest, if there was anything evil, they would have provided for this also, that it should be altogether in a man's power not to fall into it. Now that which does not make a man worse, how can it make a man's life worse? But neither through ignorance, nor, having the knowledge but not the power to guard against or correct these things, is it possible that the nature of the universe has overlooked them. Nor is it possible that it has made so great a mistake, either through want of power or want of skill, that good and evil should happen indiscriminately to the good and the bad. But death, certainly, and life, honour and dishonour, pain and pleasure, all these things equally happen to good men and bad, being things which make us neither better nor worse. Therefore, they are neither good nor evil. 12. How quickly all things disappear. In the universe, the bodies themselves, but in time, the remembrance of them. What is the nature of all sensible things, and particularly those which attract with the bait of pleasure, or terrify by pain, or are noised abroad by vapoury fame? How worthless and contemptible, and sordid and perishable, and dead they are. All this it is the part of the intellectual faculty to observe. To observe, too, who these are whose opinions and voices give reputation, what death is, and the fact that, if a man looks at it in itself, and by the abstractive power of reflection, resolves into their parts all the things which present themselves to the imagination in it, he will then consider it to be nothing else than an operation of nature. And if anyone is afraid of an operation of nature, he is a child. This, however, is not only an operation of nature, but it is also a thing which conduces to the purposes of nature. To observe, too, how man comes near to the deity, and by what part of him, and when this part of man is so disposed. 13. Nothing is more wretched than a man who traverses everything in the round, and pries into the things beneath the earth, as the poet says, and seeks by conjecture what is in the minds of his neighbours, without perceiving that it is sufficient to attend to the demon within him, and to reverence it sincerely. And reverence of the demon consists in keeping it pure from passion and thoughtlessness, and dissatisfaction with what comes from gods and men. For the things from the gods merit veneration for their excellence, and the things from men should be dear to us by reason of kinship. And sometimes even, in a manner, they move our pity by reason of men's ignorance of good and bad. This defect being not less than that which deprives us of the power of distinguishing things that are white and black. 14. Though thou shouldest be going to live 3,000 years, and as many times 10,000 years, still remember that no man loses any other life than that which he now lives, nor lives any other than that which he now loses. The longest and shortest are thus brought to the same, for the present is the same to all, though that which perish is not the same, and so that which is lost appears to be a mere moment. For a man cannot lose either the past or the future, for what a man has not, how can anyone take this from him? These two things, then, thou must bear in mind. The one, that all things from eternity are of like forms and come round in a circle, and that it makes no difference whether a man shall see the same things during 100 years, or 200, or an infinite time. And the second, that the longest liver and he who will die soonest lose just the same. For the present is the only thing of which a man can be deprived, if it is true that this is the only thing which he has, and that a man cannot lose a thing if he has it not. 15. Remember that all is opinion. For what was said by the cynic Monimus is manifest, and manifest too is the use of what was said, if a man receives what may be got out of it, as far as it is true. 16. The soul of man does violence to itself, first of all, when it becomes an abscess, and, as it were, a tumour on the universe, so far as it can. For to be vexed at anything which happens is a separation of ourselves from nature, in some part of which the natures of all other things are contained. In the next place, the soul does violence to itself when it turns away from any man, or even moves towards him with the intention of injuring, such as are the souls of those who are angry. In the third place, the soul does violence to itself when it is overpowered by pleasure or by pain. Fourthly, when it plays a part and does or says anything insincerely and untruly. Fifthly, when it allows any act of its own and any movement to be without aim, and does anything thoughtlessly and without considering what it is, it being right that even the smallest things be done with reference to an end. And the end of rational animals is to follow the reason and the law of the most ancient city and polity. 17. Of human life the time is a point, and the substance is in a flux, and the perception dull, and the composition of the whole body subject to putrefaction, and the soul a whirl, and fortune hard to divine, and fame a thing devoid of judgment. And, to say all in a word, everything which belongs to the body is a stream, and what belongs to the soul is a dream and vapour, and life is a warfare and a stranger's sojourn, and after fame is oblivion. What, then, is that which is able to conduct a man? One thing, and only one, philosophy. But this consists in keeping the daemon within a man free from violence and unharmed, superior to pains and pleasures, doing nothing without a purpose, nor yet falsely and with hypocrisy, not feeling the need of another man's doing or not doing anything. And besides, accepting all that happens and all that is allotted as coming from thence, wherever it is, from whence he himself came. And, finally, waiting for death with a cheerful mind, as being nothing else than a dissolution of the elements of which every living being is compounded. But if there is no harm to the elements themselves in continually changing into another, why should a man have any apprehension about the change and dissolution of all the elements? For it is according to nature, and nothing is evil which is according to nature. Book 3, Composed Incarnuntum. 1. We ought to consider not only that our life is daily wasting away and a smaller part of it is left, but another thing also must be taken into the account, that if a man should live longer, it is quite uncertain whether the understanding will continue sufficient for the comprehension of things, and retain the power of contemplation which strives to acquire the knowledge of the divine and the human. For if he shall begin to fall into dotage, perspiration and nutrition and imagination and appetite and whatever else there is of the kind will not fail, but the power of making use of ourselves and filling up the measure of our duty and clearly separating all appearances and considering whether a man should now depart from life and whatever else of the kind absolutely requires a disciplined reason, all this is already extinguished. We must make haste then, not only because we are daily nearer to death, but also because the conception of things and the understanding of them cease first. 2. We ought to observe also that even the things which follow after the things which are produced according to nature contain something pleasing and attractive. For instance, when bread is baked, some parts are split at the surface, and these parts, which thus open, and have a certain fashion contrary to the purpose of the baker's art, are beautiful in a manner, and in a peculiar way excite a desire for eating. And again, figs, when they are quite ripe, gape open, and in the ripe olives, the very circumstance of their being near to rottenness adds a peculiar beauty to the fruit. And the ears of corn bending down, and the lion's eyebrows, and the foam which flows from the mouth of wild boars, and many other things, they are far from being beautiful if a man should examine them severally, still, because they are consequent upon the things which are formed by nature, help to adorn them, and they please the mind. So that if a man should have a feeling and deeper insight with respect to the things which are produced in the universe, there is hardly one of those which follow by way of consequence, which will not seem to him to be in a manner disposed so as to give pleasure. And so he will see even the real gaping jaws of wild beasts with no less pleasure than those which painters and sculptors show by imitation. And in an old woman and an old man, he will be able to see a certain maturity and comeliness. And the attractive loveliness of young persons he will be able to look on with chaste eyes. And many such things will present themselves, not pleasing to every man, but to him only who has become truly familiar with nature and her works. 3. Hippocrates, after curing many diseases, himself fell sick and died. The Chaldaei foretold the deaths of many, and then fate caught them too. Alexander and Pompeius and Gaius Caesar, after so often completely destroying whole cities, and in battle cutting to pieces many 10,000s of cavalry and infantry, themselves too at last departed from life. Heraclitus, after so many speculations on the conflagration of the universe, was filled with water internally, and died smeared all over with mud. And lice destroyed Democritus, and other lice killed Socrates. What means all this? Thou hast embarked, thou hast made the voyage, thou art come to shore. Get out. If indeed to another life there is no want of gods, not even there, but if to a state without sensation, thou wilt cease to be held by pains and pleasures, and to be a slave to the vessel, which is as much inferior as that which serves it is superior. For the one is intelligence and deity, the other is earth and corruption. 4. Do not waste the remainder of thy life in thoughts about others, when thou dost not refer thy thoughts to some object of common utility. For thou losest the opportunity of doing something else, when thou hast such thoughts as these. What is such and such a person doing, and why? And what is he saying, and what is he thinking of, and what is he contriving? And whatever else of the kind makes us wander away from the observation of our own ruling power. We ought, then, to check in the series of our thoughts everything that is without a purpose and useless, but most of all the over-curious feeling and the malignant. And a man should use himself to think of those things only about which, if one should suddenly ask, "What hast thou now in thy thoughts?" with perfect openness thou mightest immediately answer, "This or that," so that from thy words it should be plain that everything in thee is simple and benevolent, and such as befits a social animal, and one that cares not for thoughts about pleasure or sensual enjoyments at all, nor has any rivalry or envy and suspicion, or anything else for which thou wouldest blush if thou shouldest say that thou hadst it in thy mind. For the man who is such, and no longer delays being among the number of the best, is like a priest and minister of the gods. using the deity which is planted within him, which makes the man uncontaminated by pleasure, unharmed by any pain, untouched by any insult, feeling no wrong, a fighter in the noblest fight, one who cannot be overpowered by any passion, dyed deep with justice, accepting with all his soul everything which happens and is assigned to him as his portion. And not often, nor yet without great necessity and for the general interest, imagining what another says or does or thinks. For it is only what belongs to himself that he makes the matter for his activity, and he constantly thinks of that which is allotted to himself out of the sum total of things, and he makes his own acts fair, and he is persuaded that his own portion is good. For the lot which is assigned to each man is carried along with him, and carries him along with it. And he remembers also that every rational animal is his kinsman, and that to care for all men is according to man's nature. And a man should hold on to the opinion, not of all, but of those only who confessedly live according to nature. But as to those who live not so, he always bears in mind what kind of men they are, both at home and from home, both by night and by day, and what they are, and with what men they live an impure life. Accordingly, he does not value at all the praise which comes from such men, since they are not even satisfied with themselves. 5. Labour not unwillingly, nor without regard to the common interest, nor without due consideration, nor with distraction, nor let studied ornament set off thy thoughts, and be not either a man of many words, or busy about too many things. And further, let the deity which is in thee be the guardian of a living being, manly and of ripe age, and engaged in matter political, and a Roman and a ruler, who has taken his post like a man waiting for the signal which summons him from life, and ready to go, having need neither of oath nor of any man's testimony. Be cheerful also, and seek not external help, nor the tranquillity which others give. A man, then, must stand erect, not be kept erect by others. 6. If thou findest in human life anything better than justice, truth, temperance, fortitude, and, in a word, anything better than thy own mind's self-satisfaction in the things which it enables thee to do according to right reason, and in the condition that is assigned to thee without thy own choice, if, I say, thou seest anything better than this, turn to it with all thy soul, and enjoy that which thou hast found to be the best. But if nothing appears to be better than the deity which is planted in thee, which has subjected to itself all thy appetites, and carefully examines all the impressions, and, as Socrates said, has detached itself from the persuasions of sense, and has submitted itself to the gods, and cares for mankind. If thou findest everything else smaller and of less value than this, give place to nothing else. For if thou dost once diverge and incline to it, thou wilt no longer, without distraction, be able to give the preference to that good thing which is thy proper possession, and thy own. For it is not right that anything of any other kind, such as praise from the many, or power, or enjoyment of pleasure, should come into competition with that which is rationally and politically, or practically, good. All these things, even though they may seem to adapt themselves to the better things in a small degree, obtain the superiority all at once, and carry us away. But do thou, I say, simply and freely choose the better, and hold to it. But that which is useful is the better. Well then, if it is useful to thee as a rational being, keep to it. But if it is only useful to thee as an animal, say so, and maintain thy judgment without arrogance. Only take care that thou makest the inquiry by a sure method. 7. Never value anything as profitable to thyself, which shall compel thee to break thy promise, to lose thy self-respect, to hate any man, to suspect, to curse, to act the hypocrite, to desire anything which needs walls and curtains. For he who has preferred to everything else his own intelligence and daemon, and the worship of its excellence, acts no tragic part, does not groan, will not need either solitude or much company. And, what is chief of all, he will live without either pursuing or flying from death. But whether for a longer or a shorter time he shall have the soul enclosed in the body, he cares not at all, for even if he must depart immediately, he will go as readily as if he were going to do anything else which can be done with decency and order. Taking care of this only all through life, that his thoughts turn not away from anything which belongs to an intelligent animal and a member of a civil community. 8. In the mind of one who is chastened and purified, thou wilt find no corrupt matter, nor impurity, nor any sore skinned over. Nor is his life incomplete when fate overtakes him, as one may say of an actor who leaves the stage before ending and finishing the play. Besides, there is in him nothing servile, nor affected, nor too closely bound to other things, nor yet detached from other things, nothing worthy of blame, nothing which seeks a hiding place. 9. Reverence the faculty which produces opinion. On this faculty it entirely depends whether there shall exist in thy ruling part any opinion inconsistent with nature and the constitution of the rational animal. And this faculty promises freedom from hasty judgment, and friendship towards men, and obedience to the gods. 10. Throwing away then all things, hold to these only which are few, and besides, bear in mind that every man lives only this present time, which is an indivisible point, and that all the rest of his life is either past or it is uncertain. Short then is the time which every man lives, and small the nook of the earth where he lives, and short too the longest posthumous fame, and even this only continued by a succession of poor human beings, who will very soon die, and who know not even themselves, much less him who died long ago. 11. To the aids which have been mentioned, let this one still be added. Make for thyself a definition or description of the thing which is presented to thee, so as to see distinctly what kind of a thing it is in its substance, in its nudity, in its complete entirety, and tell thyself its proper name, and the names of the things of which it has been compounded, and into which it will be resolved. For nothing is so productive of elevation of mind as to be able to examine methodically and truly every object which is presented to thee in life, and always to look at things so as to see at the same time what kind of universe this is, and what kind of use everything performs in it, and what value everything has with reference to the whole, and what with reference to man, who is a citizen of the highest city, of which all other cities are like families. What each thing is, and of what it is composed, and how long it is the nature of this thing to endure, which now makes an impression on me, and what virtue I have need of with respect to it, such as gentleness, manliness, truth, fidelity, simplicity, contentment, and the rest. Wherefore, on every occasion a man should say, this comes from God, and this is according to the appointment and spinning of the thread of destiny, and such like coincidence and chance. And this is from one of the same stock, and a kinsman and partner, one who knows not, however, what is according to his nature. But I know. For this reason, I behave towards him according to the natural law of fellowship, with benevolence and justice. At the same time, however, in things indifferent, I attempt to ascertain the value of each. 12. If thou workest at that which is before thee, following right reason seriously, vigorously, calmly, without allowing anything else to distract thee, but keeping thy divine part pure, as if thou shouldst be bound to give it back immediately, if thou holdest to this, expecting nothing, fearing nothing, but satisfied with thy present activity according to nature, and with heroic truth in every word and sound which thou utterest, thou wilt live happy, and there is no man who is able to prevent this. 13. As physicians have always their instruments and knives ready for cases which suddenly require their skill, so do thou have principles ready for the understanding of things divine and human, and for doing everything, even the smallest, with a recollection of the bond which unites the divine and human to one another. For neither wilt thou do anything well which pertains to man, without at the same time having a reference to things divine, nor the contrary. 14. No longer wonder at hazard. For neither wilt thou read thy own memoirs, nor the acts of the ancient Romans and Hellenes, and the selections from books which thou wast reserving for thy old age. Hasten then to the end which thou hast before thee, and, throwing away idle hopes, come to thy own aid, if thou carest at all for thyself, while it is in thy power. 15. They know not how many things are signified by the words stealing, sowing, buying, keeping quiet, seeing what ought to be done. For this is not affected by the eyes, but by another kind of vision.
It's a miracle to be alive. Have child now.
16. Body, soul, intelligence. To the body belong sensation, to the soul, appetites, to the intelligence, principles. To receive the impressions of forms by means of appearances belongs even to tools, To be pulled by the strings of desire belongs both to wild beasts and to men who have made themselves into women, and to a Phalaris and a Nero. And to have the intelligence that guides to the things which appear suitable belongs also to those who do not believe in the gods, and who betray their country and do their impure deeds when they have shut the doors. If, then, everything else is common to all that I have mentioned, there remains that which is peculiar to the good man, to be pleased and content with what happens, and with the thread which is spun for him, and not to defile the divinity which is planted in his breast, nor disturb it by a crowd of images, but to preserve it tranquil, following it obediently as a god, neither saying anything contrary to the truth, nor doing anything contrary to justice. And if all men refuse to believe that he lives a simple, modest, and contented life, he is neither angry with any of them, nor does he deviate from the way which leads to the end of life, to which a man ought to come pure, tranquil, ready to depart, and without any compulsion, perfectly reconciled to his lot. Book 4. 1. That which rules within, when it is according to nature, is so affected with respect to the events which happened, that it always easily adapts itself to that which is possible and is presented to it. For it requires no definite material, but it moves towards its purpose, under certain conditions, however, and it makes a material for itself out of that which opposes it, as fire lays hold of what falls into it, by which a small light would have been extinguished. But when the fire is strong, it soon appropriates to itself the matter which is heaped on it, and consumes it, and rises higher by means of this very material. 2. Let no act be done without a purpose, nor otherwise than according to the perfect principles of art. 3. Men seek retreats for themselves, houses in the country, seashores, and mountains, and thou too art wont to desire such things very much. But this is altogether a mark of the most common sort of men, for it is in thy power, whenever thou shalt choose, to retire into thyself. For nowhere, either with more quiet or more freedom from trouble, does a man retire than into his own soul, particularly when he has within him such thoughts that by looking into them he is immediately in perfect tranquillity. And I affirm that tranquillity is nothing else than the good ordering of the mind. Constantly then give thyself this retreat, and renew thyself, and let thy principles be brief and fundamental, which, as soon as thou shalt recur to them, will be sufficient to cleanse the soul completely, and to send thee back free from all discontent with the things which thou returnest. For with what art thou discontented? With the badness of men? Recall to thy mind this conclusion, that rational animals exist for one another, and that to endure is a part of justice, and that men do wrong involuntarily. And consider how many already, after mutual enmity, suspicion, hatred, and fighting, have been stretched dead, reduced to ashes, and be quiet at last. But perhaps thou art dissatisfied with that which is assigned to thee out of the universe. Recall to thy recollection this alternative: either there is providence, or atoms. Or remember the arguments by which it has been proved that the world is a kind of political community, and be quiet at last. But perhaps corporeal things will still fasten upon thee. Consider then further that the mind mingles not with the breath, whether moving gently or violently, when it has once drawn itself apart and discovered its own power. And think also of all that thou hast heard and assented to about pain and pleasure, and be quiet at last. But perhaps the desire of the thing called fame will torment thee. See how soon everything is forgotten, and look at the chaos of infinite time on each side of the present, and the emptiness of applause, and the changeableness and the want of judgment in those who pretend to give praise, and the narrowness of the space within which it is circumscribed, and be quiet at last. For the whole earth is a point, and how small a nook in it is thy dwelling, and how few are there in it, and what kind of people are they who will praise thee? This then remains. Remember to retire into this little territory of thy own, and above all, do not distract or strain thyself, but be free, and look at things as a man, and as a human being, as a citizen, as a mortal. But among the things readiest to thy hand, to which thou shalt turn, let there be these, which are two. One is that things do not touch the soul, for they are external and remain immovable, but our perturbations come only from the opinion which is within. The other is that all these things which thou seest change immediately and will no longer be, and constantly bear in mind how many of these changes thou hast already witnessed. The universe is transformation. Life is opinion. 4. If our intellectual part is common, the reason also in respect of which we are rational beings is common. If this is so, common also is the reason which commands us what to do and what not to do. If this is so, there is a common law also. If this is so, we are fellow citizens. If this is so, we are members of some political community. If this is so, the world is, in a manner, a state. For of what other common political community will anyone say that the whole human race are members? From thence, from this common political community, comes our very intellectual faculty and reasoning faculty, and our capacity for law. Or whence do they come? For as my earthly part is a portion given to me from certain earth, and that which is watery from another element, and that which is hot and fiery from some peculiar source, for nothing comes out of that which is nothing, as nothing also returns to non-existence, so also the intellectual part comes from some source. 5. Death is such as generation is, a mystery of nature. Composition out of the same elements, and a decomposition into the same, and altogether not a thing of which any man should be ashamed. For it is not contrary to the nature of a reasonable animal, and not contrary to the reason of our constitution. 6. It is natural that these things should be done by such persons. It is a matter of necessity. And if a man will not have it so, he will not allow the fig tree to have juice. But by all means bear this in mind, that within a very short time both thou and he will be dead, and soon not even your names will be left behind. 7. Take away thy opinion, and then there is taken away the complaint. I have been harmed. Take away the complaint, I have been harmed, and the harm is taken away. 8. That which does not make a man worse than he was, also does not make his life worse, nor does it harm him either from without or from within. 9. The nature of that which is universally useful has been compelled to do this. 10. Consider that everything which happens, happens justly, and if thou observest carefully, thou wilt find it to be so. I do not say only with respect to the continuity of the series of things, but with respect to what is just, and as if it were done by one who assigns to each thing its value. Observe then, as thou hast begun, and whatever thou dost, do it in conjunction with this, the being good, and in the sense in which a man is properly understood to be good. Keep to this in every action. 11. Do not have such an opinion of things as he who does thee wrong, or such as he wishes thee to have, but look at them as they are in truth. 12. A man should always have these two rules in readiness. The one to do only whatever the reason of the ruling and legislating faculty may suggest for the use of men, the other to change thy opinion if there is anyone at hand who sets thee right and moves thee from any opinion. But this change of opinion must proceed only from a certain persuasion, as of what is just or of common advantage and the like, not because it appears pleasant or brings reputation. 13. Hast thou reason? I have. Why then dost not thou use it? For if this does its own work, what else dost thou wish? 14. Thou hast existed as a part. Thou shalt disappear in that which produced thee, but rather thou shalt be received back into its seminal principle by transmutation. 15. Many grains of frankincense on the same altar. One falls before, another falls after, but it makes no difference. 16. Within 10 days thou wilt seem a god to those to whom thou art now a beast and an ape, if thou wilt return to thy principles and the worship of reason. 17. Do not act as if thou wert going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over thee. While thou livest, while it is in thy power, be good.
We just didn't do enough
18.
job to get them, the polls, or have them convinced that the polls are a good idea, I should say.
They didn't forget Marshall. They're representing the nice corporate entities.
Very true. Merry Christmas, John.
Merry Christmas, Marshall. Hope you're well, man. I gotta get up there too, dude. I'm hunting over the border, so I'll be up there in northern Arizona. Good to see you, so.
The Sultan demands 1,000 boys to serve his army. The townspeople protest. When one father begs a soldier not to take his son, the soldier brandishes his blade, but the king pins the soldier to the wall. The king is reminded that he has no army and has no choice but to obey. At the castle, the king consults with Brother about the creature. Shin recounts the history of the vampire, a man who summoned the demon for power. The demon granted him power, but condemned him to
Black their policies for the working class of America, Democrats be down that I'm missing. Stuff I should be aware of.
Well, to be honest, how can you claim that you represent the working class and you open up the borders to replace the working class? How can you say that you represent Americans when Americans need money? They can't get it, but illegal aliens cross the border. They get $5,000 for crossing the border, $2,200 per month per person, free housing, and free medicine. When I originally told the truth about this, people would say, no, that's not true. No, that's not true. But yes, it's true.
It's not, though. Like, it's not true. We just generalize it. There are certain locations where some of that stuff is true in the country, but it's not. It ain't like you cross the border and collect fucking money like Monopoly or some shit. That's not how it works, bro.
Sounds like Monopoly.
Yeah, like that's not how it works. Like you're exaggerating a little bit. But no, there
No, sir, I wish I weren't exaggerating.
The U.S. infantry.
No, you are though, because I'm trying to specify how true what you're saying is. There are programs at local, typically like city municipality levels, and sometimes at state levels, that whereby migrants or immigrants who are residents of those areas can get the kinds of benefits you're describing. They can get housing. They can get work permits. That allows them to work. They can get.
You think a U.S. infantryman is ever going to engage an Israeli infantryman?
Some kind of unemployment insurance type thing, and they have access to certain kinds of health care. But that's not universal. And
no, all right, okay. I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna land and leave the room. First of all, thank you for allowing me to speak. Thank you for bringing me to the stage, and I'm gonna show you all the respect that you have shown me. However, sir, you're wrong. They get $5,000 for crossing the border, $2,200 a month, free housing. But don't listen to me. Don't listen to me. Listen to the brothers in Chicago. Listen to the brothers in New York.
They don't get $5,000 for crossing the border. That's
yes, they do. Yes, they do. That's fine. Let's check it out. It's cool. It's cool. Check it out. Thank you very much. No, it's okay. Check it out. Let me say Merry Christmas. Thank you for allowing me to come to your stage. Right? And I'm going to catch up with you later.
Just provide proof. Like, you can leave, but...
Dude, man. It's been 4 years. It's been 4 years. I don't have to provide shit.
Okay. You can do what you want to do. I'm saying that would be a better way to go.
I live on the border. It's mostly Africans and Chinese people who be crossing the border. Mexicans work in the U.S. for free. Like, work in the U.S. anyway because they, like, truck over to the U.S. every day. Like, buy a truck.
Yeah, they're not even asylums. Like, so there's asylum, and then there's people who cross the border illegally or not seeking asylum. Those are treated very differently, and the kinds of programs that they have access to are very different. And he needs to understand that. And otherwise, he's just conflating a bunch of different things.
Yeah, those people are from South America. They ain't like million people. It's like
Dominique motherfuckers are not getting $5,000 across the border. That's ridiculous. It's not true. But they are like. So I'm trying to be fair because there are a bunch of places, cities, municipalities where migrants can get local benefits. They can get housing, right? In places like Chicago, for example, they can get housing. They can get work permits. They can, and then sometimes they'll set them up with like EBT cards in places like Chicago, or not EBT cards, like debit cards with a certain amount of money on them that to get them started right away until they can find a job or something like that. That's what they're intended for. In places like Chicago, like that's true. That has happened. I can prove that. But this idea that you cross the border and get $5,000, congratulations. Like, nah, that's not how that works anywhere. I don't know what he's talking about. He made that up. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, bro. So I mean, I don't know. There's like these exaggerated.
How much trouble he avoids, who does not look to see what his neighbour says or does or thinks, but only what he does himself, that it may be just and pure. Or, as Agathon says, look not round at the depraved morals of others, but run straight along the line without deviating from it. 19. He who has a vehement desire for posthumous fame does not consider that every one of those who will remember him will themselves die very soon. Then again also they who have succeeded them, until the whole remembrance shall have been extinguished, as it is transmitted through men who foolishly admire and perish. But suppose that those who will remember are even immortal, and that the remembrance will be immortal. What then is it to thee? And I say not what is it to the dead, but what is it to the living? What is praise, except indeed so far as it has a certain utility? For thou now rejectest unseasonably the gift of nature, clinging to something else. 20. Everything which is in any way beautiful is beautiful in itself, and terminates in itself, not having praise as part of itself. Neither worse then, nor better is a thing made by being praised. I affirm this also of the things which are called beautiful by the vulgar, for example, material things and works of art. That which is really beautiful has no need of anything, not more than law, not more than truth, not more than benevolence or modesty. Which of these things is beautiful because it is praised, or spoiled by being blamed? Is such a thing as an emerald made worse than it was if it is not praised? Or gold, ivory, purple, a lyre, a little knife, a flower, a shrub? 21. If souls continue to exist, how does the air contain them from eternity? But how does the earth contain the bodies of those who have been buried from time so remote? For as here, the mutation of these bodies after a certain continuance, whatever it may be, and their dissolution, make room for other dead bodies, so the souls, which are removed into the air after subsisting for some time, are transmuted and diffused, and assume a fiery nature by being received into the seminal intelligence of the universe, and in this way make room for the fresh souls which might come to dwell there. And this is the answer which a man might give on the hypothesis of souls continuing to exist. But we must not only think of the number of bodies which are thus buried, but also of the number of animals which are eaten daily by us and the other animals. For what a number is consumed, and thus, in a manner, buried in the bodies of those who feed on them. And nevertheless, this earth receives them by reason of the changes of these bodies into blood, and the transformations into the aerial or the fiery element. What is the investigation into the truth in this matter? The division into that which is material and that which is the cause of form, the formal. 22. Do not be whirled about, but in every movement have respect to justice, and on the occasion of every impression, maintain the faculty of comprehension. 23. Everything harmonizes with me, which is harmonious to thee, O universe. Nothing for me is too early nor too late, which is in due time for thee. Everything is fruit to me, which thy seasons bring, O nature. From thee are all things, in thee are all things, to thee all things return. The poet says, dear city of Cecrops, and wilt not thou say, dear city of Zeus? 24. Occupy thyself with few things, says the philosopher, if thou wouldst be tranquil. But consider if it would not be better to say, do what is necessary, and whatever the reason of the animal which is naturally social requires, and as it requires. For this brings not only the tranquility which comes from doing well, but also that which comes from doing few things. For the greatest part of what we say and do being unnecessary, if a man takes this away, he will have more leisure and less uneasiness. Accordingly, on every occasion, a man should ask himself, is this one of the unnecessary things? Now, a man should take away not only unnecessary acts, but also unnecessary thoughts, for thus superfluous acts will not follow after. 25. Try how the life of the good man suits thee, the life of him who is satisfied with his portion out of the whole, and satisfied with his own just acts and benevolent disposition. 26. Hast thou seen those things? Look also at these. Do not disturb thyself. Make thyself all simplicity. Does anyone do wrong? It is to himself that he does the wrong. Has anything happened to thee? Well, out of the universe, from the beginning, everything which happens has been apportioned and spun out to thee. In a word, thy life is short. Thou must turn to profit the present by the aid of reason and justice. Be sober in thy relaxation. 27. Either it is a well-arranged universe, or a chaos huddled together, but still a universe. But can a certain order subsist in thee, and disorder in the all? And this too, when all things are so separated and diffused, and sympathetic.
Do you have a sister in the
28. A black character, a woman character, a stubborn character, bestial, childish, animal, stupid.
Oh my god. It's his name. Luigi Mangione. Oh, they're smoking weed. Wow. Shut up, Lucy. I added Luigi Mangione. Luigi podcast, and I do care. Somebody does. You gotta hide you. No, you don't. Yes, I do. And I added him on my sister. Oh my god, no, I'm mad. Look, that's my podcast. Oh my god, that's karma, yeah.
Why do you think he could get away with it? I don't understand.
I bet he can start a GoFundMe and he'll have enough money to build it.
Do you think he was...
Bid, counterfeit, scurrilous, fraudulent, tyrannical. 29. If he is a stranger to the universe who does not know what is in it, no less is he a stranger who does not know what is going on in it. He is a runaway who flies from social reason. He is blind who shuts the eyes of understanding. He is poor who has need of another, and does not from himself all things which are useful for life. He is an abscess on the universe who withdraws and separates himself from the reason of our common nature through being displeased with the things which happen. For the same nature produces this, and has produced thee too. He is a piece rent asunder from the state, who tears his own soul from that of reasonable animals, which is one. 30. The one is a philosopher without a tunic, and the other without a book. Here is another half naked. Bread I have not, he says, and I abide by reason, and I do not get the means of living out of my learning, and I abide by my reason. 31. Love the arts, poor as it may be, which thou hast learned, and be content with it, and pass through the rest of life like one who has entrusted to the gods with his whole soul all that he has, making thyself neither the tyrant nor the slave of any man. 32. Consider, for example, the times of Vespasian. Thou wilt see all these things: people marrying, bringing up children, sick, dying, warring, feasting, trafficking, cultivating the ground, flattering, obstinately arrogant, suspecting, plotting, wishing for some to die, grumbling about the present, loving, heaping up treasure, desiring consulship, kingly power. Well, then, that life of these people no longer exists at all. Again, removed to the times of Trajan. Again, all is the same. Their life too is gone. In like manner, view also the other epochs of time and of whole nations, and see how many, after great efforts, soon fell and were resolved into the elements. But chiefly thou shouldst think of those whom thou hast thyself known, distracting themselves about idle things, neglecting to do what was in accordance with their proper constitution, and to hold firmly to this, and to be content with it. And herein it is necessary to remember that the attention given to everything has its proper value and proportion, for thus thou wilt not be dissatisfied, if thou hast applied thyself to smaller matters no further than is fit. 33. The words which were formerly familiar are now antiquated, so also the names of those who were famed of old are now in a manner antiquated. Camillus, Caeso, Valessus, Leonatus, and a little after also Scipio and Cato, then Augustus, then also Hadrianus and Antoninus. For all things soon pass away and become a mere tale, and complete oblivion soon buries them. And I say this of those who have shone in a wondrous way. For the rest, as soon as they have breathed out their last breath, they are gone, and no man speaks of them. And, to conclude the matter, what is even an eternal remembrance? A mere nothing. What, then, is that about which we ought to employ our serious pains? This one thing, thoughts just and acts.
No, I think what you rejected.
Hello, I want to interrupt and say I think you fucking losers are addicted to Clubhouse and you are here all...
Social, and words which never lie, and a disposition which gladly accepts all that happens, as necessary, as usual, as flowing from a principle and source of the same kind.
Yeah.
What about like matzo balls, brisket?
Okay, maybe like a really good deli sandwich from like a New York deli, from like a Jewish deli. That I'm counting that as Jew food. Like I don't have your answers.
I'm gonna go Google. Bagels. What about bagels?
I really don't get like this obsession the Jews have with bagels.
Because the bagels here suck, Ellie. That's why you don't get it.
Really?
It's the saltwater bagels in
The
Brooklyn.
format is confusing. Like you have a hole in the middle, so like shit falls through.
But that's the best part. So you can like lick the cream cheese that gets like smushed.
Lick the cream cheese. I hate to interrupt, but my car got towed at the matzo ball last night.
You always interrupt. It's so annoying.
I hate to interrupt.
You always interrupt.
I hate to interrupt, but they towed my car at the matzo ball last night when I was trying to get a Jewish girl's number.
Joy, shut up and tell us, like, what do you think about bagels?
I love bagels. If you don't like bagels, you're not an American. You're barely a human, and shame on you if you don't like a toasted bagel with cream cheese.
I fucking agree with you. I'm not American, that's for sure.
Guys, what's your bagel order?
Everything bagel, poppy seed, French onion, and then what's that one called? What's the good one called? What's the Jewish one called? I forgot already. It's been a while.
No, like what's your order? Like toasted, lightly toasted?
Oh yeah,
what-
toasted,
what-
fully cream cheese.
That's it?
Yeah, like what? I mean, sometimes when I lived in LA, there were a lot of great. Anyways, if you get the omelet bagel with the cheese, I mean, maybe even a piece of sausage, and cream cheese on top of it. Yeah.
What do you mean I'm fat? But I like a salmon bagel, toasted with cream cheese and brown sugar.
Oh my god, it sounds amazing.
And there's no good bagels.
What about
at all?
What about putting honey on top?
Lots and capers, bros. Cream cheese, lots and capers, my guys. Like,
Let's not forget about lox.
Let's not forget about diabetes, fatties. I worked at the Google office and I ate 2 giant lox bagels every morning, and I definitely put on 20 pounds in about 2 weeks.
That's your fault.
I was going into diabetic comas at 11 a.m. falling asleep.
I would love if my office had bagels.
No, I hate fucking office food. Like this is so destructive.
Destructive?
Yeah, it fucks with your diet.
I was at the gym 2 days ago, and they have this private little workout area, and all these fatties were working out, and this loud, obnoxious fitness trainer was screaming at them like, push it, push it. And then as soon as the workout is over, I see them all fucking feasting on Dunkin' Donuts and brownies and cookies and fucking like everything under the sun. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, you fat fucks.
And they don't know that you don't burn calories in the gym. Like literally, like at all.
I don't know. Like if you're gonna snack, like you can snack appropriately if you're trying to lose weight. Hey, Smooch.
Because the whole thing is, if I want to snack Oreos and cupcakes and ice cream and brownies and hot Cheetos, that's what I'm gonna do. And who's gonna check me?
Yeah, me too.
And who's gonna check me?
I know. Excuse me. Can I get a toasted bagel with cream cheese, brown sugar, honey, and caramel on top, please? Also, a double macchiato.
In the wrong places.
Hello.
My America being fat, I'm checking you. Like I'm just making it illegal. No obesity.
Yeah, if anyone tries to check me in public on my weight, I'm farting on them.
Ooh, girl, that's a fucking that's assault with gas. That's a deadly weapon. You trying to Zyklon B some people at Starbucks?
Because I farted on you?
No, you're just not gonna get any dick.
Like, oh wow.
You said what? I farted on you, bitch. Farted on you again, bitch.
Stressed out.
Again. Again. Again.
It's illegal. It's now illegal in my
It's illegal.
Pull my finger, bitch.
You're allowed to have this unkept beard. I'm allowed to have a love handle. Okay?
Beads are legal in my America, but no.
Oh, and you're.
What about not having a chest? Did you see Cristiano Ronaldo or whoever that soccer player is? It's like, what happened to his chest?
He's a soccer player. Soccer players don't have.
He's literally a 10 visually. Like, what are we talking about here, guys?
No, I'm just saying his pectoral muscles, they're like flat as the wall. Do you think the girl in my PTR's bosoms are real or fake?
Both real.
Really? No, those are fakes.
No, I'm kidding. The girl on the right is fake.
The girl on the left is maybe
It looks
real.
really bad. It looks like
I know, but from a
I'm
visual
not gonna body shame people.
from a visual perspective, when you see it like at a nightclub or a bar, wherever she was working at, you're just like it's like you can't not look. It's just like totally mesmerizing. It's a billboard on legs.
Well, it's mesmerizing. This picture, there's nothing mesmerizing about this.
They look like balloons. Like they don't look. There's two separated, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
And they have no hips. There's nothing to their hips.
Have anybody in this room ever squeezed bosoms like that?
Yeah,
They're like not as soft as regular.
You have to massage them every morning, or else they'll get rock hard.
Really?
Yeah, you have to massage them daily.
Well,
If they're saline, you have to massage them.
I took this.
Is there a job opening in that? Like, she has that in the morning. I'm asking for a friend.
Yeah, I think the bar was in Kentucky because I like just went on Instagram and typed in Xmas and like this photo showed up.
Oh my God,
Or
Brian.
Oklahoma.
Oh, what's that a picture of? That's not you.
No, that's
this is Zach Ruda.
that's our-
This is my future husband.
your future husband. He's moving to Israel. What are you talking about?
No, he's not.
He's so cute. Yes, he is.
Is this you?
No, that's a Clubhouse
Zach
user.
Ruda.
Who's that?
He's a Clubhouse user.
He's a Clubhouse.
He's in Israel right now. He said he's gonna move there.
No, he's back in the States.
Oh wow. Yeah, did you know Israel's at war? Wow.
No, not anymore.
What I don't understand is like, will the Palestinians fight till like every fighting person is dead? Will they fight all to the death? I get the feeling that could happen. The group think is that powerful. Like the Japanese only, I think, stood down because like the emperor mass communicated on radio to, for everybody to stand down. But like over there, I mean, since the leadership is killed, they must be in communication with wherever the leadership is. I mean, it must be external, like Doha or wherever, but just saying, like, how do they get them to actually lay down their arms and do a mass surrender?
Why doesn't Israel just put like a strong man in charge of that area and be like, listen, we're not in charge of you. This guy, this dictator is in charge of you. He doesn't hate you. He likes you. He just doesn't hate us either. And he's just gonna like rule you with like force. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but
it's like
somebody will.
Chechnya with Kadyrov, and this will not end well for them.
Why didn't it work for Chechnya?
Because Kadyrov will fucking slaughter the Russians later on. Wait and see.
The problem with the installation, as opposed to like an authentic organic, is that assassination. Like somebody will just pop him, and he'll have to have his own private Praetorian Guard, which will conflict with the pre-existing established rank and order or whatever that is. Just be nice if there was, a surrender, but I don't think that'll ever happen.
I
think that the Palestinians are so brainwashed into like a bloodthirsty hatred of Jews in Israel that like you're gonna need a transition period where you like re-educate the children via like mass education programs before that there can be anything like a normal society. And that in order for that to happen, there's gonna need to be like someone in charge that isn't the Palestinians that is enforcing that.
Ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, what's sad is that, like, they're just Palestinians who keep fucking trying to fight Israel and their names keep getting fucking blown up because they're too stupid to just stop.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the fighters are not the most educated people in the world, so they will just fight to the death because they don't have the information necessary to actually surrender, let alone, you know, anyways, I don't know what's going to happen. The Syrian question is interesting too, because that guy is like doing a propaganda campaign as like an ethical leader now or something. And he's technically, we are told that he's technically at war with the West, but I think internally, like through the Saudis, he's actually just technically a proxy or a.
Is he aligned with Saudis, or
It's
do they
just-
have a animosity between them?
I don't know. Is he Sunni or is he Shia? I don't know. He's Sunni, right?
He's the same. Yeah, he's Sunni.
Yeah, then they're aligned. I mean,
Sunni.
yeah. So
No, but
who cares about the political? Who cares about the political bonds? The bonds of Islam are probably the real bonds.
but he's a Sunni jihadi, and the Saudis, at least the government, is like.
I know, but you have to admit there's got to be princes within that royal government that fund Sunni jihadist intelligence and operations. Gotta be.
Probably.
Because it's such a big government. And there's somebody on that Patrick Bet David show saying he lived in Saudi Arabia for 10 years. He says it's a paradise. No crime, high employment, pay for education, best public, systems of any cities in the world. And, but it's a ruthless maniacal monarchy. And even that MBS, I don't know, because anyways, there's always that infighting and royal court intrigue. It's amazing that there's not more like assassinations inside the House of Saud.
But they have like a good system going right now, at least.
I feel like most of the Saudi royal family is educated in the West, so most of them have like Western values. You know what I mean? They're not like fundamentalists like they used to be back in the day.
Yeah, I mean that's a big thing. And the funniest thing is when you see some of these Saudis, because like their parents married white women, they speak like British English, and they're white Arabs speaking British English, and they dress up like Saudis, and you're just like, oh fuck, like they are multiracial. Like their leadership, there's a large amount of multiracial English speaking Muslim Saudi royal leaders. So you're like, yeah. There's a big difference between your indigenous Bedouin who's living in a mud brick hut outside of a multi-billion-dollar mansion, versus like who and what the Saudis really are, which is like they are fully embedded with the British and like they are biracial now.
I think it's so fascinating how like women can drive there now, and they're starting. It's like it's starting to become like a much more liberalized place. I find that fascinating.
But the population is kind of very backwards.
Yeah.
It's like a slow process. So that technically there's still like a theocracy, and they have like, so you can have a bar and you can sell like alcohol there, but like the local population will be covered like from head to toe in burqas and shit.
Yeah, I mean, but you just don't want to get caught up with something illegal, and instead of like going to jail or paying a fine, like they'll cut your fucking head off in the public square with a giant scimitar.
That's kind of awesome though.
What do you think about Bashar Assad's
Wife leaving him?
No, that is an interesting story, but the all the methamphetamine that he was distributing and how he was using that to like control the military and also, you know, because basically, you know, we're so convinced that big pharma is, you know, like legitimate business, but at the end of the day, these warehouse facilities where big pharma operates and, you know, manufactures and packages, et cetera, like it's just a fucking warehouse full of chemicals. So they make it seem like he was this huge dope dealer, but was he really? I mean, I feel like that's propaganda. Like he wasn't like an international methamphetamine dealer, you know, distributor.
I don't know if it's international. I know it's national. I know like the Lebanese kind of like the Hezbollah has a huge drug operation. That's how they found
So it's like all the drugs like cannabis, coke, meth, heroin, whatever else there is. I don't know.
I was not keeping tabs on it, but
it's the powders business. I Googled marijuana delivery Chicago, and there's like websites where you can just like somebody will pull up to your house, you sit in their car, and you buy weed from them. And I'm pretty sure
we have a thing called telegraphs.
in Israel.
I don't think it exists anymore.
Well, it's not like the of course it does, because the telegraphs initially it was like a distributed network on Telegram, like groups.
Yeah.
But it was like under one organization. You still have the same shit, but just not organized under the same umbrella. But it's like kind of still the same.
You know what's so funny, Ellie? When people on here started talking about Telegram, I was like, do people actually use it? Because all I know about Telegram is that it's where you buy weed in Israel.
Well, Russians use it like WhatsApp. They use it more than WhatsApp. Like Russians, Ukrainians.
I know, like, it's good for buying drugs in Israel and news.
Yeah, but
I don't know if people like really use it. I mean, I don't buy drugs, but I know that's what people use it for.
Yeah. In Israel, like, people started using it more, but still, like, everyone here on WhatsApp. And you can use Telegram for drugs.
No, use it for like, you know, news, like real time news that's like unfiltered and uncensored.
Yeah, but it's more like Eastern Europe app.
Interesting. It's a great app.
It's much better than WhatsApp. Much better.
I like it much better than WhatsApp.
Me too.
So WhatsApp though.
But it's a network effect. Like you can never switch Israelis to Telegram now. WhatsApp is fucking too bad.
Exactly. It's like how no Israelis use Snapchat.
And by the way, the funniest shit ever for like everyone that don't know, Americans fucking use iMessage. Right? Like the whole green bubble thing is like, it's not an issue anywhere else in the world.
I know, it's so weird. My family still makes me message them on iMessage. Like I have to text my grandmother on iMessage.
Yeah.
I use Facebook Messenger, no lie.
Okay, I'm back.
I love the feature of sending voice notes.
Because I like everybody in this room except Sam. Because Sam, why were you snapping your fingers on my face?
When was I
snapping? Why are you being so hostile?
Just earlier, you were snapping your fingers on my face.
What do you mean? Like just saying that fat people are illegal in my America?
No. Because you were trying to rip me to shreds. Is what you were trying to do.
Sam wears women's clothing.
Wait. What did I say that ripped you to shreds?
I said you were trying to.
And you were trying to.
What did I say that was trying to?
Something that I can't remember right now.
Was it the fatty comments or was it something else?
It was about you snacking on something.
You hear that? That's my iced coffee.
Well, I mean, in my America, it's legal to fat, so you get taxed.
Girl, you're fat yourself. Stop lying.
Is what I'm saying. You were not the skinniest, miniest person in the.
I'm within the realm of what's legal.
No, you're
in my
not.
America.
I don't know. Your head could easily weigh like 40 pounds up.
The head size doesn't have to do anything with weight.
No, because I feel like people with big ass heads should be taxed for that. Why are you walking around with a big head?
They got a big brain, maybe.
It's an eyesore. It's an eyesore. I want a big head.
Something that's funny is that like brain size literally is correlated with IQ. It's like people thought that was like a myth. It's just like not a myth. It's just true.
Sam, why did you block Boosie?
Yeah. Who?
Conservative, or what was her name? Melania.
Wait.
It's not you blocking Bastiana. That's crazy.
Wait, are you talking about the person that is like trans woman?
Is not true. Yeah.
Well, I just said that I'm not attracted to her because she presents as a cis man on her Instagram. I'm not gay, and that caused her to freak the fuck out and be like, "What the fuck?"
What? So you're into trans women?
I'm not. I'm. It's fine.
Would you suck a woman's dick?
Probably not. No.
Yeah, probably.
So I don't know. She got really mad at me and kept insulting me because of this thing where I like was flirting with her, and then I was like, "Oh yeah, but I'm not attracted to you because you present as a man and you're
the only way."
And for some reason, that was like a problem, and she thought I was calling her ugly, and I was like, "Literally, I'm not calling you ugly. I'm just saying I'm not attracted to how you present on your Instagram." And it was like too much for her to like comprehend, so I just walked her.
Well, you broke her heart. Now she doesn't come on Clubhouse anymore.
Democrat frauds out of office.
Well, I think we're talking about this.
Keep yourself out of this.
No, you said Boosie at first, and what?
Yeah, better keep yourself out of this, Ellie.
Tex Bears. Wake up.
All right, guys. I'll see y'all later.
Bye.
Say hi to Dylan. We took over.
Children in River North at 11 p.m. on Xmas Eve. Parking garages are the only way to go. Taxpayers, voters, communists, Democrats, frauds out of office, restore Chicago, taxpayers, wake up.
I wish I could just take every Nazi in the world and just have them always hear Hava Nagila just in the background. It's like a spell that I cast on them, and they just like had to always hear it.
Art.
Could you sleep afterwards, Ellie?
Yeah.
Vote these communist Democrat frauds out of office.
I need to find a song that I can sing, like something new.
Bravo.
Taylor Swift, All Too Well.
Oh no!
10-minute version.
No.
No, but I probably should go for a male vocalist and someone in
Children in River North at 11 p.m. on Xmas Eve. Parking garages are the only way to go. Taxpayers, voters, communists, Democrats, frauds out of office, restore Chicago. Restore to Chicago.
My Chemical Romance, The Black Parade.
Oh.
I'm not okay. When I was a young, what's that one?
No, but it has to be a song that I like. That's
My
so
father
shit music.
took me into the sea. Do you guys know that song? Hello?
No.
No, sorry.
Yesterday we were singing Usher.
I love you, Taylor Swift. Did you see the video of the fake Taylor Swift? Everybody thinks it's Taylor Swift, and like people start crying when they think it's her, and it's not her.
Yeah, it's really Ashley.
Who
The girl's name is Ashley.
Who is Ashley?
This Taylor Swift impersonator.
Oh, she really does look like her. It's amazing.
She really does, but it's a little creepy. Like, she tries too hard to look like her. Like a weird way. She also like brought security once to a mall, and it was like, girl, it's so weird. And then she was hated on the internet for it.
I'm the biggest troll. Is anyone else here just addicted to trolling? Like, I just love shit posting, shit commenting. My favorite thing to do, but
I just hate that you record every conversation. Like, can you not?
this conversation is being recorded on like 10 devices right now, so just FYI.
Why?
For no other reason than not to do it. I don't know why people just come here to talk and just to waste your time. It's horrible. People are addicted to this app. It's crazy.
Like, you need not only to waste time, you need also to waste this space.
Listen, every room is a horrible waste of time, and it's horrible. It's unbelievable. And yeah.
No, but Edmund, the problem is that there is no good use for time. Like, if you think about it.
Well, that's the thing about creating videos is there's really no, to me, videos are like the best way to use your time because everybody's addicted to videos and they're just, their whole lives are just consuming videos. Like that's what people's lives are, just watching videos.
But you view it symbolically, but like, if you go another level, like, there's no good use of time.
The point is about people's lives watching videos is that most people are in a hypnosis and technically it's like mind control. And Facebook Meta, you know, I just had an Instagram account get deleted last night. It was a private account and I'm like, how the fuck? And I had to upload my driver's license and like they did a review and then they emailed me back within just like fucking 30 seconds saying we've reviewed and your account has been permanently disabled. I'm like, what the fuck? So anyways, what I'm trying to say is that if you looked and actually knew the amount of data that Facebook Meta purges from its platform and what people are saying, you can pretty much like actually get at like the antithesis of the propaganda. So I'm just saying that censorship, but then also like if you listen to people on this app, and I hate to use like my short-term memory, but the point is a lot of people have this bias and this sentiment. It's like toxic because it like really reflects their emotional state of mind and their awareness and education. And so I don't know, that's why I say like recording this app and like listening and really trying to, you know, understand this psychology or like the human brain. It's like brain sciences basically.
Yes, but you can listen in the moment, right?
Yeah, but it's their overall personality. Like if you listen to somebody for many years and basically we are repeating chatterboxes, and unless you upload new data into your chatterbox, it's always going to be the same chatterbox output.
Welcome to the Black Parade by My Chemical Romance is the name of the song.
I'm sorry. I can't play copyrighted music on my live stream, so I'm gonna have to leave and come back.
You found the hack. You want to go back to recording? You just have to music.
It's true.
There are
That's
other hacks as well.
yeah. That's I think.
I didn't know that there is a hack.
Listen, that's why
There were a few.
The Bitcoin room is doing that.
Of YouTube search.
Think about
Yeah,
that.
like what can be, what can't be. Probably pornography.
No. If you say the N word, F word,
Fuck.
Yeah. No. N-word really triggers it.
You can say the F word.
No. Not well. You can't say the N-word though. No, can't say that word either.
What happens if you say it?
They ruined my live stream.
No, but someone should play My Chemical Romance. Welcome to the Black Parade.
Okay, I'm gonna go to a Jewish room, guys. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Oh, My Chemical Romance? Isn't that like the dopamine that's happening on this app in all your lives? That kind of chemical romance? Dopamine.
Yo, I saw My Chemical Romance like years ago.
Let me ask dopamine. Hi, dopamine. What do you think about this, dopamine? Dopamine says dopamine. So dopamine is okay with me. Dopamine. Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to bring you that dopamine message.
But it doesn't matter if they're guilty because they're in a war. They started a war, and now they're in a war.
Edward, you have to realize.
So it doesn't matter.
Edward, you have to
You don't
realize.
have to take them to trial or anything stupid like that. You can just drop a bomb on their little terrorist heads.
You have to realize that the people of Gaza voted it in a terrorist organization to represent them as their government. Like, how can you do that?
It was the West Bank. It was Palestinians in the West Bank.
No, it was Gaza.
No, that's different.
Read a newspaper.
Gaza never had elections. Gaza did not have elections.
Hippocrates, after curing many diseases, himself fell sick and died. The Chaldei foretold the deaths of many, and then fate caught them too. Alexander and Pompeius, and Gaius Caesar, after so often completely destroying whole cities, and in battle, cutting to pieces many 10,000s of cavalry and infantry, themselves too, at last departed from life. Heraclitus, after so many speculations on the conflagration of the universe, was filled with water internally, and died smeared all over with mud. And lice destroyed Democritus, and other lice killed Socrates. Thou hast embarked, thou hast made the voyage, thou art come to shore. Get out. If indeed to another life there is no want of gods, not even there, but if to a state without sensation, thou wilt cease to be held by pains and pleasures, and to be a slave to the vessel, which is as much inferior as that which serves it is superior. For the one is intelligence and deity, the other is earth and corruption. 4. Do not waste the remainder of thy life in thoughts about others, when thou dost not refer thy thoughts to some object of common utility. For thou losest the opportunity of doing something else when thou hast such thoughts as these. What is such and such a person doing?
Okay, this is the Quran audiobook, Glorious Allah.
Willingly give thyself up to Clotho, allowing her to spin thy thread into whatever thing she pleases. 35. Everything is only for a day, both that which remembers and that which is remembered. 36. Observe constantly that all things take place by change, and accustom thyself to consider that the nature of the universe loves nothing so much as to change the things which are, and to make new things like them. For everything that exists is in a manner the seed of that which will be. But thou art thinking only of seeds which are cast into the earth or into a womb. But this is a very vulgar notion. 37. Thou wilt soon die, and thou art not yet simple, nor free from perturbations, nor without suspicion of being hurt by external things, nor kindly disposed towards all, nor dost thou yet place wisdom only in acting justly. 38. Examine men's ruling principles, even those of the wise, what kind of things they avoid, and what kind they pursue. 39. What is evil to thee does not subsist in the ruling principle of another, nor yet in any turning and mutation of thy corporeal covering. Where is it, then? It is in that part of thee in which subsists the power of forming opinions about evils. Let this power then not form such opinions, and all is well.
It's not.
And if that which is
competition.
nearest to it, the poor body, is cut, burnt, filled with matter and rottenness, nevertheless let the part which forms opinion about these things be quiet. That is, let it judge that nothing is either bad or good, which can happen equally to the bad man and the good. For that which happens equally to him who lives contrary to nature, and to him who lives according to nature, is neither according to nature nor contrary to nature. 40. Constantly regard the universe as one living being, having one substance and one soul, and observe how all things have reference to one perception, the perception of this one living being, and how all things act with one movement,
Communism.
and how all things are the cooperating causes
That's the
of all
way
things
text
which
is.
exist. Observe, too, the continuous spinning of the thread and of the contexture of the web. 41. Thou art a little soul bearing about a corpse, as Epictetus used to say. 42. It is no evil for things to undergo change, and no good for things to subsist in consequence of change. 43. Time is like a river made up of the events which happen, and a violent stream. For as soon
Repeat the cross Kabbalistic by experiment. Paper was printed. Miss at sunset.
a thing has been seen, it is carried away, and another comes in its place, and this will be carried away too. 44. Everything which happens is as familiar and as well known as the rose in spring and the fruit in summer.
Who the hell are you?
For such is disease,
Who the hell are you?
and calumny and treachery, and whatever else delights fools or vexes them.
I get the feeling
45.
people don't even know he's the mayor.
Those which follow are always aptly fitted to those which have gone before.
Whoa,
This
slow it
series is
down
not
there.
like the
Whoa.
which is only a necessary sequence.
Slow it down there, Ireland.
And as all existing things are arranged together harmoniously,
Whoa, slow it down there,
things that come
Ireland.
into existence exhibit no mere succession, but a certain wonderful relationship. 46. Always remember the saying of Heraclitus, that the death of earth is to become water, and the death of water is to become air, and the death of air is to become fire, and reversely. And think, too, of him who forgets whither the way leads, and that men quarrel with that which they are most constantly in communion, the reason which governs the universe. And the things which they daily meet with seem to them
He's not the brightest guy in the
consider that
world.
we ought not to act and speak as if we were asleep, for even in sleep we seem to act and speak, and that we ought not, like children who learn from their parents,
They're Jewish now. Oh my God, they are Jewish now. Oh my God, they are Jewish now. Oh my God, they are Jewish
certainly on the day
now.
after tomorrow. Thou wouldst not care much whether it was on the third day or on the morrow, unless thou wast in the highest degree mean-spirited. For how small is the difference? So think it no great thing to die after as many years as thou canst name, rather than tomorrow. 48.
Merry Christmas, baby.
Think continually how many physicians are dead, after often contracting their eyebrows over the sick, and how many astrologers, after predicting with great pretensions the deaths of others, and how many philosophers, after endless discourses on death or immortality, how many heroes, after killing thousands, and how many tyrants who have used their power over men's lives with terrible insolence, as if they were immortal, and how many cities are entirely dead, so to speak, Elysee and Pompeii and Herculaneum, and others innumerable. Add to the
Is that a
record
dog
all
suit?
thou hast known, one after another. One man after burying another has been laid out dead, and another buries him.
Rosebud, baby.
To conclude,
That's right.
always observe
That's
how
it.
ephemeral
Oh,
and
Chicago and
worthless human
Wheeling.
things
1,
are,
2.
and what was
3,
yesterday a little
4,
mucus,
5,
tomorrow
6,
will be a mummy
8,
or ashes. Pass then through this little space of time comfortably to nature, and end thy journey in content, as an olive falls off when it is ripe, blessing nature who produced it, and thanking the tree on which it grew. 49. Be like the promontory against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it. Unhappy I am because this has happened to me. Not so, but happy I am, though it has happened to me, because I continue free from pain, neither crushed by the present, nor fearing the future. For such a thing as this might have happened to every man, but every man would not have continued free from pain on such an occasion. Why, then, is that rather a misfortune than this a good fortune? And dost thou in all cases call that a man's misfortune, which is not a deviation from man's nature? And does a thing seem to thee to be a deviation from man's nature, when it is not contrary to the will of man's nature? Well, thou knowest the will of nature. Will then this which has happened prevent thee from being just, magnanimous, temperate, prudent, secure against inconsiderate opinions and falsehood? Will it prevent thee from having modesty, freedom, and everything else, by the presence of which man's nature obtains all that is its own?
She's a witch.
Remember, too, on every occasion which leads thee to vexation, to apply this principle. Not that this is a misfortune, but that to bear it nobly is good fortune. 50. It is a vulgar, but still a useful help towards contempt of death, to pass in review those who
Oh
have
my God, they're Jewish now.
What more have they gained than those who have died early? Certainly they lie in their tombs somewhere.
Oh my God, they're Jewish now.
Cadicianus, Fabius, Julianus, Lepidus, or anyone else like them, who have carried out me to be buried, and then were carried out themselves. Altogether, the interval between birth and death is small, and consider how much trouble, and in company with what sort of people, and in what a feeble body, this interval is laboriously passed. Do not, then, consider life a thing of any value, for look to the immensity of time behind thee, and to the time which is before thee, another boundless space. In this infinity, then, what is the difference between him who lives 3 days and him who lives 3 generations? 51. Always run to the short way, and the short way is the natural. Accordingly, say and do everything in conformity with the soundest reason. For such a purpose frees a man from trouble and warfare, and all artifice and ostentatious display.
Hello, I'm Patrick Stewart. I believe in helping people in crisis, whether they are from Lebanon, Ukraine, Gaza, Sudan, or any troubled area around the world. I ask you to join me in supporting the International Rescue Committee's life-changing work. The IRC is on the front lines of humanitarian crises, and IRC teams stay on the ground as long as they are needed, so displaced people can rebuild their lives. Your support today matters. It can provide medicine, emergency food, critical supplies, and many life-changing programs. It is a gift of hope when families need it most.
Should have taken that Zav.
Book 5.
Whoops.
In the morning, when thou
Whoopsie. Should have taken that Zav.
I am rising to the work of a human being.
Your fucking
Why
brother.
then am I dissatisfied if I am going to do the things for which I exist and for which I was brought into this world? Or have I been made for this, to lie in the bedclothes and keep myself warm? But this is more pleasant. Dost thou exist, then, to take thy pleasure, and not at all for action or exertion? Dost thou not see the little plants, the little birds, the ants, the spiders, the bees working together to put in order their several parts of the universe? And art thou unwilling to do the work of a human being? And dost thou not make haste to do that which is according to thy nature? But it is necessary to take rest also. It is necessary. However, nature has fixed bounds to this too. She has fixed bounds to eating and drinking, and yet thou goest beyond these bounds, beyond what is sufficient. Yet in thy acts it is not so, but thou stoppest short of what thou canst do. So thou lovest not thyself, for if thou didst, thou wouldst lovest thy nature and her will. But those who love their several arts exhaust themselves in working at them unwashed and without food. But thou valuest thy own nature less than the turner values the turning art, or the dancer the dancing art, or the lover of money values his money, or the vainglorious man his little glory. And such men, when they have a violent affection to a thing, choose neither to eat nor sleep, rather than to perfect the things which they care for. But are the acts which concern society more vile in thy eyes, and less worthy of thy labour? 2. How easy it is to repel and wipe away every impression which is troublesome or unsuitable, and immediately to be in all tranquillity. 3. Judge every word and deed which are according to nature to be fit for thee, and be not diverted by the blame which follows from any people, nor by their words. But if a thing is good to be done or said, do not consider it unworthy of thee. For those persons have their peculiar leading principle, and follow their peculiar movement, which things do not thou regard, but go straight on, following thy own nature and the common nature, and the way of both is one. 4. I go through the things which happen according to nature, until I shall fall and rest, breathing out my breath into that element out of which I daily draw it in, and falling upon that earth out of which my father collected the seed, and my mother the blood, and my nurse the milk, out of which during so many years I have been supplied with food and drink, which bears me when I tread on it, and abuse it for so many purposes. 5. Thou sayest, men cannot admire the sharpness of thy wits. Be it so, but there are many other things of which thou canst not say, I am not formed from them by nature. Show those qualities, then, which are altogether in thy power: sincerity, gravity, endurance of labour, aversion to pleasure, contentment with thy portion and with few things, benevolence, frankness, no love of superfluity, freedom from trifling, magnanimity. Dost thou not see how many qualities thou art immediately able to exhibit?
It's a pleasure to be here. And those are a series of tough acts to follow. I would like to announce at the outset that I score between bogey and double bogey. So you shouldn't feel threatened. And those of you that are here only to get specific golf instruction had best look elsewhere. I agreed to do this because I couldn't believe I'd been asked. I mean, this is so bizarre. I took up golf last August, a year ago, after a hiatus of 50 years. I played as a child. And I'd like to share with you, since this is about learning, and this was an experience of learning for me, I'd like to share with you why I did that. And yes. Oh, okay. Okay, sorry. I was on a train from Westport to New York City, an evening train. I was 62 at the time. And it was a train in which you had to buy the ticket on the train because the Westport station was closed. It had been an autumn day. I had been walking among the beautiful leaves with Jude Stanton, a lovely friend. And the conductor came through the car, and he said, tickets, please. I said, I'd like to buy a ticket. And he said, what kind would you like? I said, what choices do I have? And he said, regular or senior? Now, that had never dawned on me. So I said, senior? And I said it with the same question that I had when I went in for my first beer when I was 18 in New York, beer, And the conductor gave me the ticket. I said, how much is that? He said, $4.50. And I said, how much is the regular ticket? He said, $7.
So I knew I had a good thing going. But he never asked for any identification. It just disturbed me. And then he walked away, and I thought, I am in this society a senior citizen. What could that be about? And I felt like I was putting on a strange coat that had with it a lot of stuff connected with it that was more than just an economic advantage. And as I examined that more, I've ended up now, I'm in the middle of writing a book about conscious aging. Because what I saw in the aging world was that unless I were conscious, there's an old experiment, and I don't know whether it's apocryphal or actual, that if you put a frog in boiling water, it will jump out. But if you put it in cold water and heat the water very slowly, it will boil to death. And I saw that I was sliding down a long ramp into the cultural model of aging. And that unless I was conscious about it, I was just going to buy into a whole lot of mythology that really isn't very functional for who we are at this moment in the world. And since I have been working on my consciousness for the last 30 years, I thought it would be interesting to see aging as an experiment in consciousness. In other words, I am working on my consciousness and using the experiences of aging, the slowing down, the changes, the way people treat you, all of the stuff about it. I would use that as an exercise on my consciousness. And in a similar way, I would bring my consciousness to bear on aging to make it, turn it from some terrible kind of
You think you
slightly unpleasant social problem
is everyone engaging
into something else,
it's usual.
into a delight, an interesting adventure. Well, one of the things that's apparent when you get older is that you need to keep your body going. You got to put some effort into it. You can't just ride on the wave of something or other. So what I did was I went to the gymnasium, and I went to Gold's Gym first. Those of you that know Gold's Gym know that it's filled with huge hulks that have incredible pecs and lats, and they stand in front of mirrors, and they project. So I came in here and I started to do this, but I'm nearsighted, so I can't see the mirror. So I didn't see myself, I just saw them. So pretty soon I began to think like I was one of them, with this, and I could feel my muscles bulging in my neck. And I was doing well until one day my trainer, this young lady, looked at me and she said, "Are you all right?" I thought, oh shit, man, it's not working at all. So I went to another gym that was more Marini. And there, everybody is nice, and they're all doing what I'm doing, basically. Just working on yourself. But, I thought this is going to go on for years, and this isn't really the kind of fun I want to have. So that's when golf appeared. Golf appeared as something that I could see, I could carry it through for years, because I had just broken my Achilles tendon playing tennis 4 years ago. But golf could go on and on. It was and it would get me out in nature and all of the beautiful things that you and I understand. Now, it's an interesting thing. What I face often is I'm out on a golf course and somebody comes up and says, "Aren't you Ram Dass?" I say, "Yes." "What are you doing playing golf?" I mean, there's a certain incompatibility, a dissonance in their mind. They have me in one category and they have golf in another category, which is kind of interesting in itself. And what I saw was that I was going to undertake golf the way I'm undertaking aging, as an experiment in consciousness. And I would learn and I would do the whole thing in that form. And also, I would bring the consciousness to the way I enjoyed the game of golf. And now, when I started to play, because my fellow that handles a lot of my gigs and manages and stuff like that is a very good golfer, he encouraged me to do this, and so I went to take lessons. Now, I wanted to start fresh, so I said, "How do you do? My name's Richard." And my golf teacher said, "Well, Richard, it's a pleasure to have you," and we started our games. And after about 6 lessons, she said to me once, "Richard, I'd like to know, have you ever heard of meditation?" So I pulled it off anyway. And when I go out on the course and I get paired up with people, as you do when you're going alone, I'm always, "Hi, I'm Dick." And I'm in a very neutral role in society. And there's a beautiful culture out on the golf course that doesn't require that you can really leave your identity at home. It's very nice. Very rarely. It's almost an obscenity to say to somebody, "What do you do?" You know, "I play golf." Well, when I started to take lessons, what was interesting to me was that right next to the golf course where I was taking the lessons, there was a little flying strip. And they were teaching people to fly. So that many hours during the day, a little Cessna would be taking off, something like that. And I was a pilot, and I had studied in a little situation like that. And when I studied back in Palo Alto Airport, back in the 50s, my teacher was a very fierce and demanding and screaming and judgmental teacher. He was also the FAA inspector, so I had a double whammy here. And he wasn't going to have any of his pilots be lousy, so he really, and every time I heard one of those planes go down the runway when I'm practicing golf, I would feel his judgment laying upon me, and I would feel myself get tense again. And I remembered how I learned how to fly in spite of that tension. I mean, I was afraid not to learn how to fly. But I'm not flying today. I gave it up because of the way I learned, actually, I think. And so when I started to learn golf, I really saw this as an interesting moment for me because I saw that it was going to reawaken all the old anxieties I had about learning something. That, in fact, my PhD at Stanford here was around facilitating and debilitating anxiety, and how some people under stress of competition or pressure do better, and some do worse. And it's very unfair to compare them in terms of their knowledge, because some people definitely tighten up and perform less well under stress. And the stress of a learning situation is certainly one of those situations where that can happen. And so one of the things I was going to be mindful of in the way I learned golf was where I was learning it from, and whether I had to recreate all the learning situations I'd had in elementary school and college and learning to fly, where it was always pitting myself against myself to learn this and to please someone. Now, what I have noticed in my life is that the basic tools that I end up having as a human being are, you could say, my mind, my heart, and my energy of my body, my physical being. And what I've seen again and again is how little I understood about my own mind. How very little I understood. And I saw that I was less effective because my mind was so agitated all the time. And what happened was, because as Jim mentioned, in 1961, I took psilocybin mushrooms when I was at Harvard. And that opened a door to me to other planes of consciousness. And I saw now that the plane I had grown up on, that I thought was Richard and who I thought I was only one. Just like when you dream at night, you go into another plane of consciousness that's very familiar. And then you come back and you don't even know some of the players that were in the dream. You don't know how you had that dream. I'm sure you've all had that experience. And this issue of opening up to these planes of consciousness, from outside of a plane of the normal waking consciousness, I looked at normal waking consciousness and I saw that I was really, that my mind was all over the place. It was being pulled here and there by all kinds of things. And so I began to see that the practice of meditation was going to be a base grounding process for whatever other spiritual practices I did in my life. And I started a program which started in 1970, so I've been now doing this thing for 25 years. And it was to basically examine the mechanics of my own mind. It was not to examine I'm not that interested in the content of my mind. That's what education's about, filling it with content. I was interested in the way the mind works and trying to understand, because that's the basic tool you have to play. And anybody that doesn't think your mind is involved when you stand in front of a golf ball. And then the question is, where are you in relation to your thought processes about what the thing is you're doing at that moment? So I started some very simple things in 1970, which were basically coming out of a Southern Buddhist tradition. It didn't require you to become a Buddhist. All it required was that you follow your breath. It was an idiot game. It said, bring your awareness to your breath, and it could be a muscle. I chose a muscle in my abdomen that moves with each breath. And every time you breathe in, you notice it goes up, and every time you breathe out, it goes down. So when it goes up, you think rising. When you go down, you think falling. Now, can you imagine doing a thing like that? Okay. So you say, I'll do it for 20 minutes. What the hell? I'll try it. I'll give it a fair chance. So you sit down and the teacher says, bring your awareness to the muscle in your abdomen. Rising, notice it rising, notice it falling. The teacher said, for the next 20 minutes, that is all I am asking you to do. Please do that. Stay with that. So you start. Rising, falling, rising. This will never work. Falling, rising, falling. For this, I got a PhD. Rising, falling, rising. My knee hurts. Falling, rising, falling. You think it's time for lunch yet? I mean, and it started. And I saw the nature of my own mind, because it was like they talk about it as trying to chain a wild elephant. And the mind just kept going like that, like that. And this was a simple practice in concentration, in getting the mind so that it would stay at a place where you put it. And you say, well, that's not natural. Because when you wake up in the morning, I'm not about you, because you're all very evolved consciousnesses, but the regular people that aren't in Shiva's irons, when they wake up, the people that aren't perfectly in control of their minds, when they wake up, they start thinking, I've got to go to the toilet. I've got 5 more minutes. It's warm in that corner of the bed. I don't smell coffee. I've got to do my laundry. I forgot to call so-and-so. Oh, I'm going to sleep. What was I dreaming? And your mind starts, and it's like a trip hammer. Think of me, think of me, think of me. And all these thoughts keep coming up, and you say, oh, yeah, right. And then, oh, yes, I'll be late. And then you start to be busy being somebody who will be late. And you watch your mind keep taking over reality moment by moment. So when you take...
You're not prepared to take advantage of the opportunity. You ever seen that video? No. Pull that video up, because it's one of my favorite. There will come opportunities in life, you know, when they're presented to you, in front of you. It's just a matter of whether you're not prepared to take advantage of the opportunity. But you got to develop that resilience within you. Life is not about how much you succeed. It's about what happens when you fail, right? So life is... You could look at like, man, what's been inspiring for me? If you said, oh, Tom, what are the greatest wins? I'd be like, the wins, those are, let's talk about the losses. Those are the ones that really, made me who I am. And as you go through life, and we're all adults, things happen in life that you don't want to have happen. Whether you lose a game or whether things don't go well at work or something with your child, or, there's a lot of things that come up in our personal and professional lives that just don't go the way we want. And how do you deal with it? Do you deal with class and integrity and with courage and with resilience? And are you able to share emotion with people? And do you have other people in your life that can help you through those things? And I think, like I said, my blessing is I've had people that go through those things with me. And, they always say double the pleasure and divide the pain. And that's what relationships are all about. When you care for those people and when you love them, when you give them, they give back. And, that's where the
simple
reward comes.
exercise like swallowing your breath. All it says is for 20 minutes. So the simple thing, 20 minutes, just stay with your breath. And what that begins is a dance. Let me tell you the extremes of addiction you can carry this to. I spent 2 months in a Burmese meditation factory, basically, an ashram or a yekta, in which 17 hours a day, all I did was that. Got it? Oh, when I got tired doing that, I could stand up in my cell and walk back and forth, transferring the attention from the breath to the foot. Lift, move, place. Lift, move, place. Lift, move, place. And then I'd sit down again and start the rising and falling. Now, it is, if you ever want to see what your mind looks like, if you ever want to hold up a mirror to see how your mind works, just the simplest instruction, try keeping your attention on your breath. I'll settle for 3 minutes. And you'll see how little it stays concentrated. And what was interesting is that after those 2 months, I entered into what is one of the early stages of the process, which is called neighborhood concentration, where instead of the mind always going off to this and that being pulled, and then you having to pull it back, it kept wanting to stay on the breath. And every time it went away, it would pull itself back. It started to focus on that. And that method, when pursued, which I have not pursued it as a basic method, I just want it as a grounding, it makes your mind laser-like so you can start to penetrate through into deeper and deeper levels of reality, which has a lot to do with what we're talking about when we talk about the mystical nature of golf, where time changes and space changes and perception changes and feelings change.
My car was towed.
Now, so that's one of the strategies that I've been pursuing with my mind, is just deepening my concentration. And what that leads you to is you see where your mind goes when it leaves its focal point. It's what's called its primary object of meditation. Where it leaps to, goes here, goes there. And you can either ignore those and just keep bringing it back if you're doing a concentration exercise, or the other thing you do is you cultivate what would be called, different words, mindfulness, the witness. You cultivate that part of your mind that is just noticing what's happening to your mind. You don't try to bring it anywhere. You just notice it. You notice where your mind is going and what you're thinking about. Now let's bring it to golf. You're standing over the club, you take the grip. What happens to your mind at that point? What happened to me was that I first saw that I had a lot of bad habits. And I saw that I had to bring those habits from pre-conscious into consciousness, change the habits, and then let them go back into pre-consciousness or unconsciousness again. Because you can feel, I could see that I was not going to be able to keep that quality of witnessing the whole thing as long as my skills were too self-conscious. That is, as long as I was busy thinking, I've got to turn my wrist a little more on the backswing. It's not, and my thumb has to be in further. I mean, I had worked, as I'm sure many of you have at some stages of your learning experience, I had such a complex set of things to think about on each swing that I could hardly cram them all in. Where is my behind? Where is my chest? Where is my neck? Where is my grip? Now I come back. I've got to get out far enough before I come around. Now I've got to start to move my wrist. I'm saying it very naively because you can all hear, but you understand the issue. Pulling it around. And then I had to let go of that quickly because I now had to think about my left hip and the whole follow through. And I started to play this kind of thinking man's game I saw, where I was just so full of thoughts all the way through that after a shot, I was almost exhausted from the amount of complex things. And then each person would teach me something new. Say, yes, but you've got to be turning the right shoulder a little and lowering the left just a trifle. So now I got to add that in. Now get your arm back, lower the left shoulder, turn the head. No, you've got to, and then. And often playing golf, I felt a little bit. There's a wonderful old story about a man in a little village who makes some money, and he finally decides that he's going to treat himself to a new suit. And he goes to the local tailor, whose name is Zumbak, and he orders a wonderful suit. Zumbak's the best tailor in town. And he comes back and he goes to put it on, and he puts it on, and this sleeve is about 2 inches longer than this sleeve. And he said, Zumbak, for what I'm paying you, I think the sleeve should be the same length. Zumbak said, there's nothing, Zumbak got very indignant. There's nothing wrong with the suit. It's the way you're standing. And he took his shoulder and pushed it down. And then the man looked and he saw this material bunched behind the neck, and he said, Zumbak, my wife doesn't like it when that is there. Could you take that out? Zumbak said, there's nothing wrong with the suit. It's the way you're standing. And he pushed the guy's head forward. So the suit was fitting perfectly. And the man went out and he got on the bus and he was like this to make the suit fit. Somebody came up to him and said, what a beautiful suit. I bet Zumbak the tailor made that. And he said, how did you know? He said, because only somebody like Zumbak could fit somebody with a body as crippled as yours. And that's what I felt like with the golf. By the time I finished with I'm sure none of these are familiar experiences to you. They're just my particular Michigas. Now, the interesting thing about cultivating mindfulness in golf is that what you are cultivating is a part of your mind that is noticing the rest of the game, the rest of life. It's noticing everything else that's going on. It's noticing, now I'm speaking. Now, the noticer is not the same as the speaker. They're two different things. In other words, you cultivate that. Everybody has this all the time. The question is whether this is just a random event or whether you cultivate it as a way of being in the world. This part of yourself, but see, you often think of the word self-conscious, but that has a judging quality usually in it. This has no judgment. It's just noticing how it is. Now, like sweating with anxiety on the first tee, because everybody's standing around the foursomes that are waiting for us to shoot. And you're going to take the driver. and you're going to top the ball. You just know it. Now, the mind is going through all of its early experiences of judgment and making a fool of yourself and embarrassment and all that stuff. And the witness is saying, really neurotic, isn't he? The witness is just noticing the way it's all unfolding. It's noticing the mind doing its trip. So if you can hear, what I start with is this learning a skill. Finger here, move here, turn here, get here, then go through. And the ball is doing what it's supposed to do within reason. And then I'm now ready to add back into it the witness part of it, because this now golf is my spiritual practice. This is becoming my method for cultivating the part of my mind that is in the universe but not trapped by it. It's in my personality, but it's not stuck by it. So that I cultivate this witness that is just noticing. It's noticing depression. It's noticing excitement. It's noticing wanting to do good. It's noticing thinking about how to do good. It's noticing it all. Now, some people say, well, if you're witnessing or noticing, how do you have time to do the golf? And it looks like at first, in your first stages of this process, that it is a choice, that you're witnessing and then you're playing, and then you're witnessing and then you're playing, and you're witnessing and you're playing. But as you cultivate that part of you that is this witness, that is just seeing how it is, it's not in time, it's not going anywhere, it's got nothing to do. As this is cultivated, it takes you into a quality of witness in which it is not competitive with thought. It's like a meta game around thought. And you're just mindful and sitting, watching, and you're quiet inside, even as the phenomena are going on. There's a mystical quote that says, and this is really interesting for golf, one does nothing and nothing is left undone. Now, that comes out of Chinese mysticism. In India, it would be said in the Bhagavad Gita, it would be said that the dharmic person, the person who is acting in a harmonious way in the universe, this is really far, these two images are really quite intriguing, is somebody who is not identified with being the actor and not attached to the fruits of the action. Try that one, emphasize. Try playing golf without being a golfer. In other words, don't identify with the action. And play the golf as well as you can, but don't be attached to how it comes out. Because how it comes out is not in your control, no matter how good you get. I was just watching the match today, and I was watching at a key point to determine who was going to win $300,000 or whatever it was, and this additional championship. The player shot a beautiful ball, and it landed right on the side of right on the green, and it hit a divot that sent it to the outside and went into the rough, and that ended up adding another stroke. Now, he didn't have divot consciousness. In other words, since there are more variables operating than you personally have control over, to be attached to the fruits of the action is just going to create a tremendous amount of neurosis and unhappiness and suffering, basically. You must have noticed that. You must have noticed that. And so when we talk about, what I wanted to see was whether I could play golf. Now, I would like to say, well, I'm not a competitive person, you see, but I don't believe it. And one little example was when I was a child, my brother was 8 years older than me, than I was. And he was a very fine athlete, and he used to shame me all the time and beat me up and surpass me in everything physically. He was 16 and I was 8, of course. Now, however, I am 64 and he's 72. See, if you wait long enough, the worm turns, you see. So I called him in Long Island, where he lives, and I said, Bill, I'm playing golf these days. What do you say we play golf together? And he said, well, I haven't played in years, but sure, in his usual way. So we made a date, and I came in, and when I came to his house, the first thing he noticed was that I had my own golf clubs. That was disconcerting to him immediately, because he assumed we'd go out and rent clubs for me, and he assumed I was who I used to be. Now, I was of two minds. He has a very fragile personality, so of one mind, I wanted him to win. But there was another mind that was cultivated from many years back. I really wanted to beat them, and I did. And I'm sorry. And I'm not. Now try again the statement, one does nothing and nothing is left undone. What that is saying that I can hear is that you and I, as human beings, have the capacity and in fact do live on more than one plane of consciousness simultaneously. But usually we are so busy being captivated by the physical, psychological, social plane that we fail to acknowledge this other part of our consciousness. Because what happens when you do all the stuff of whether you meditate or take psychedelics or have a traumatic experience or whatever people do in order to flip out, as many of you have done one way or another, childbirth does it, periods do it. I mean, there's lots of ways that people go out of their mind and go into other planes of consciousness. Business reverses. Triple bogeys could do it, yes. Take you another plane of consciousness. What you see is when you go into this other plane of consciousness, it's very familiar to you, and you think, of course, I know this place. But most time you're not in it. To take you on a little trip of the stuff that I do a lot, I work a lot with people that are dying, people with AIDS. And when I work with them, I'll come into a room in which the person is got an advanced case of AIDS and looks to be dying, and everybody around them is caught in the storyline that is unfolding. My job when I walk in as just a friend, as a being there, is to honor and empathize and feel what that person is going through, but not get caught in it. And to create a space with my mind that recognizes this being as another fellow being, another soul, another awareness, who happens to be going through dying of AIDS. In other words, the question is, do you take your melodrama or your storyline or your personal drama as the whole ball of wax of who you are? Or do you see it as a storyline unfolding on one plane, and then right behind it, here we are? Like you can shift your eyes through planes of consciousness. If you look at me, on one plane you see a graying, balding Caucasian, attractive. If you shift to plane 2, you'll see a warm and generous high achiever, neurotic. That's the psychological plane. Some of you are saying, I knew that was it, you know. Shift to channel 3 on your television receiver, and you look at me and you see an Aries. You see another level of my identity, an astral level. Shift again, and you look into my eyes, and you see another being just like you looking back at you. Like you look into somebody's eyes, are you in there? I'm in here. How did you get into that one? And you see the person's body and their personality and their whole social, physical, psychological game as a play, as a dance, as a form, as a storyline, as a form, and you meet the person behind the form. So I can meet Mike and we can look into each other's eyes and I can say, like, is it interesting being Mike? And he'll tell me what it's like being Mike. And he's telling me in the same way as I said, how you do it is, do you enjoy your car? Now, the reason I'm focusing on these two planes of consciousness is because this is the major practice that I am doing with my golf at the moment. I am learning a skill, and for that I have to engage my intellectual analytic processes, which I'm going to have to then let go. Like you listen to violinists. You listen to a new violinist and you know they're thinking about moving to the third position and all of that. Because I'm a lousy cellist, I can tell you that's what it feels like. But you listen to Isaac Stern and you know that he learned the techniques, the skill, and then he forgot the skill. He forgot the skill. And only when he forgot the skill could he rest in this witness, which doesn't deny the skill. It's all there, but it's like move back into base brain. It's moved from being something that is in the prefrontal lobes where you're really thinking about it all the time, back into, I mean, look at you. If you say you don't understand what I'm saying, think about driving an automobile. Most of you drive automobiles. You are catapulting through space in a vehicle that weighs anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 pounds. It's making decisions on centrifugal and centripetal force and deceleration. If you put it on a blackboard, it would fill the blackboard. And all the time you're tuning the radio, looking for the police, carrying on a conversation, thinking about where you're going, and you don't even give it a thought most of the time. Isn't that amazing? And if I were to say to you, who are you in that car? You're very unlikely to say, I'm a driver. You would say one of your other identities because you don't even think of it as something you're doing. Now, about driving, I have an MG and I love driving. So when I'm driving, often I'll come back into I'm a driver. I'm driving an MG. And I'll really enjoy the this and the that and the feelings and the turns and the this and that. But most of the time that isn't going on. Now, when it's not going on, does it mean I'm not enjoying the MG? In other words, do you have to focus on something to be enjoying it? Or is the pleasure coming from being in harmony with the way it all is? What I'm noticing in my golf practice is that I can keep a certain degree of mindfulness now, a certain degree of watching myself through this game. And I'm absolutely fascinated and delighted about when I lose it, when I start to get into an achieving thing, a competitive thing, embarrassed thing, a bumbling thing, a model of forgetting how I'm supposed to do something, all these things that come up in my mind. Watching them, getting lost in them, coming back up into the witness, coming back up into the witness, coming back up into the witness. The question is, has all this practice taken the pleasure out of golf? Well, I'll tell you how it is. I'm at the stage now. First of all, I'm healthy. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling in nature. I'm feeling like I'm developing a skill that will serve me. At the same moment, I am feeling I'm right at the edge of the mystery with the golf game. I feel the complexity and the exquisite subtlety of all the different issues that the mind is playing with on the golf course. And I'm seeing that a lot of them are internal in my mind. A lot of them are bunkers and divots and greens and placement and pars and so on. But a lot of them are the stuff going on in my mind. And by using the game of golf as a vehicle to keep cultivating this part of my mind that is just seeing the whole thing, I feel that that's the optimum learning situation to allow the changes to occur in skills as they go along. Because I'm not invested in having my hand this way. That isn't who I am. It's the same as being a golfer versus playing golf. If you're a golfer and then, like I'm about to have surgery on my rotator cuff. Just a moment. Am I over? Okay, I'm going to stop in a minute. After a while, my teacher, who was a woman about 40, said we could play golf together. So we went out on the course together. And we were galumphing through the course. And I just had her to look at. And after a while, I began to think I was 40. I'm very suggestible, as you notice. I just slide into these other roles. So I was 40, and we were going on, and it started to rain. And on the last hole, I sliced very badly, and it went way up a rocky promontory on a hill. Now, a 64-year-old man would say, that's a dollar ball, bye-bye. But a 40-year-old would run up the hill to get the ball, which I did. But on the way down, the mud and all, and my legs started to go like this, and they went up, and I landed on my arm, and now I'm going to have surgery on my shoulder for thinking I was 40 when I was 60. Now, I can't ask for more wonderful teachings than that. And all I had to say to the doctor was, is it going to affect my golf game? Because even though it wakes me up all night, I think I'll keep it for this lifetime. I mean, how many more years do I have to go? So what I've just said is that the experiment in golf for me is an attempt to use it as a practice to become more conscious, because that's what I understand my life is about at this point. And I suspect many of you are beginning to find that's what your life is about too. And that's all the work I'm doing on aging now, and it has to do with that as a stage of life and the work on consciousness. And that it's an exquisite practice. It's not only a practice of golf, it's a practice of consciousness. And the more conscious you are, the more you're able to delight in all your foibles instead of being trapped by them. So that when you lose it and swear, there's a part of you that's giggling. Like I was playing with a guy the other day, and he was swearing and furious. And he was like, God damn. About the third hole, I said, do you enjoy doing that? So he stopped for a moment and he said, yeah. I said, okay, well then go ahead. I just want to make sure you're enjoying yourself, Because most people feel so trapped in their personalities. They think I'm an impatient person. It's just a trip. What are you buying in so much for? Everybody treats their personality in this culture like it's real. And it's not. It's a hype. It's another trip. It's another thing. My personality is like my MG. It's old and dependable, and it's fine, and it's pretty neurotic, and it's. But I'm not my personality. I am in my personality, but I'm not my personality. And I'm enjoying golf, but I'm not a golfer. I don't need group identification to give me existence. And what I see the possibility is that you can come out of the golf game developing through it qualities like equanimity, qualities like joy in the moment. I mean, the ability to take a shot that you bungle and then let go of all that so completely that when you get up to the next shot, it is a virgin moment in which you've never taken a shot before, and it is a perfect new moment. When you can do that, letting go of the past, letting go of the past, letting go of the past, how quickly can you do it? What I'm saying is that the game of golf is an exquisite practice for cultivating the qualities of mind that in the long run relieve suffering for you and other people. Yes, so I'm saying to you that you have the attraction to and the skills in and the involvement with something that is basically a vehicle for liberation. And to see it as less than that is interesting, but it's not the full ball game at all. And it doesn't diminish the beauty of the game of golf. In fact, it seems to me it enhances it, because you're just appreciating the whole process, including the humor of your own mind. I can tell you that from my own personal...
Like I said before, first of all, please answer that. Okay, this question. Where you live, did you ever been in Gaza or Israel?
I was born in Bethlehem. I came as a child to the U.S., but I've been there multiple times. I've been in the West Bank. I'm from Columbia Camp. That's the first checkpoint when you enter the West Bank. That's where my family lives. And I also have family in
They kicked me.
Experiences in life, and now actually it's starting to happen in golf. That everything that Shivas Aryan says about the qualities of the space that one enters into, where there is a shift of time and a shift of space and a shift of identity, and you are playing in the same way the trees grow and rivers flow and grass grows. And you're tuning yourself into being a part of it all through the vehicle of golf. And this state of consciousness and awareness is qualitatively different than your normal waking consciousness. And what's interesting is I basically think it is discontinuous. You go into it. But the long-term goal for me over these 25 years is to learn not to just get high and come down, not just to go and see it all and then come back into somebodyness, but to learn how to be, as Christ said, in the world but not of the world. To be simultaneously living your storyline, using the right club, keeping your ground, remembering your zip code, and simultaneously having your awareness free and spacious and not caught in anything, and just delighting in the timeless moment. And as you cultivate that and learn how to rest in that and then integrate it with the ground, in that, then those two disparate things are both present in your life at once.